Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Friday special. It may not be Friday to you, but it is for me. As always, I may be in the future. That's okay, but it is Fundamentalist Fails. We are looking at another video, and I'm doing great and a little annoyed just because of the video I have selected. I'm a little annoyed, but that's okay. It is a good day. It is a good day. So the right people are getting fired, which may or may not be a good thing. I don't know. I don't know. I have a spring in my step today. It's great. It's April. I feel good. I hope you're doing well. I do want to preface this by this one kind of really annoyed the crap out of me, so I had to do it. I was going to cover our good friend Kirby, but I decided that I was going to cover this because I did see it on my usual foray into weird religious videos that probably need attention, and it really irritated me. So I decided to do that today. Now, what are we doing today? So it was basically a tiny channel, and it really was a tiny channel, and I feel like I'm punching down because it's like 143 people or something subscribers, and look, it's pretty bad, but it just annoyed the crap out of me, and I want to talk about it and sort of the juxtaposition between evidence-based and clinically proven treatments and religious woo. That sort of disconnect between the two of them, because there's plenty of people who are religious doing evidence-based treatments in psychology, in mental health treatment. There's plenty of people out there. I am not saying, hey, if you're a Christian, you can't do. No, not at all. But what we want to make sure of is that we've got evidence-based treatment for things. And the problem is that a lot of the religious people are not going to professional, trained people in clinically proven treatments. They are going to their pastors and their sort of YouTube, and they're just watching stuff and going, oh yeah, that's a great idea, I will do that. But I want to talk about how, and I'm not sure how to phrase this, how modern psychology is kind of being hijacked by religious people. They're kind of taking modern concepts and retrofitting them into the Bible. And I think it's annoying. It is annoying. I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad thing, because here's the thing. If somebody gets an effective treatment, even though that's being provided by somebody who is, like, if just for instance you've got somebody who is very, very religious, they go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist or what have you, and that person says, well, if we do this according to your religion, and uses their religion to help them, is that a bad thing if it helps them in the long run? No, absolutely not. That's great, and if they tailor it to their religious beliefs, no problem with it. It's that, and I have mixed feelings about it, because a lot of them are sort of like, we'll do these things, and this is what the Bible says to back it up. And whether or not they're actually getting better or not, is it a long-term strategy that will help? If it is, and it has been, gone through peer review, and really they're retrofitting it and it helps, great. But it's kind of annoying that they're sort of now saying, well, it's because of this Christian belief, and Christianity now wants to claim ownership over damn near everything, including medicine, academia, the Enlightenment, and it appears psychology, which is it sort of sticks in my craw, because you have a lot of these people sort of giving really bad mental health advice, and now they want to claim it as some kind of spiritual thing. And and I'm not saying that you can't bring spirituality into your mental health treatment. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, so don't think, oh, we've got to ban religion from. No, it's important to acknowledge a person's beliefs if you do want to do anything. But I really do think that sort of hijacking evidence-based treatments as some kind of spiritual victory for religion is not right. It's not right. And I do want to make this really big disclaimer up front that I'm not a psychologist. I am not a mental health professional. So I will give, all of this is going to be my feelings, my opinions, what I think about it. But as always, if you are having problems, and I really do want to emphasize this, see somebody with the necessary training and who is a mental health professional. I can give my opinion, but you shouldn't listen to me, and you certainly shouldn't listen to some person who is a Christian on the internet who has not been trained in any of this stuff. Definitely go see somebody who is trained. So I want to make that a big disclaimer up front, because I'll be talking about my experiences from doing various forms of therapy and various forms of interactions with psychologists, psychiatrists that I have had, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am giving, my, if you do this, this is how you should handle it. It is just my opinion, and my opinion is from a layperson in psychology. But having said that, I think we should start. And I don't know whether this is from a channel called Bible Stickman. It's very strange because nowhere in this video is there any stickmen. I will preface with that. There is no stickmen in this video, so I'm kind of confused over why it's Bible Stickman. Maybe he's had a change in animation. I don't know. Okay, please don't ask me where the stickmen are. But I feel like I should perhaps maybe do a lawsuit or something for copying my likeness, because all throughout there's a very Mark Reed coded character, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that. I have no idea. But this is called what if I can't stop sinning even though I hate it? Okay. So just straight off the bat, I don't. So a lot of people ask me if I sin, right? They go, "Do you sin? Are you a sinner? Do you sin?" And I don't really have a analog for sin in my life, right? I don't know really how to answer that question, because to me, and the definition of sin to me is a violation of some kind of holy or a religious prescription, sort of. So a violation of God's morals rather than my own. So I don't have that at all. The closest I can get to is some kind of immoral act, like immoral by my definition. And so, yeah, I mean, do I do things that are immoral? Yeah. And I try to limit them as much as possible and live according to my beliefs and my morals and my ethics. But, do we slip up? Sure. Yeah. So I guess if that's what they mean by sin, but usually that's not what Christians are talking about, or Muslims are talking about, or whoever is talking about. Usually they're talking about whether you violate their God's prescriptions. And I don't even know how to answer that. Like, it's kind of silly. What's the weird? I think that's my head. I think that's my head. You've never seen my head before? Oh, I think it's his elbow. Although it's really, I've got a funny feeling this has been AI generated. I've got a funny feeling. It's kind of cursed, but that's okay. I just, bear with it. Bear with it. Yeah, and so I don't know. And so, why can't I stop sinning even though I hate it, kind of thing. And this is the problem, having such strong emotions about simple errors in judgment, right? This is part of the problem, because if you berate yourself over an error, right? Like if you make a mistake and you say something you shouldn't, or you slip up and do something wrong, right? Like this happens to everybody. And if you absolutely hate it and focus on it, you really will start the shame cycle. And the shame cycle is kind of you do something, it makes you feel better, but it's not the right thing to do. That the shame of it will make you feel bad, and then you'll look for a way to soothe those feelings. Like, so you'll go out and do it again because you're trying to cope with the emotions. So, just being kinder to yourself and saying, hey, I slipped up, it's not a big deal, is actually better for you, in my opinion, in the long run, because, sort of berating yourself and hassling yourself, it'll just make you feel really bad. Really bad. But let's go and we'll see what's wrong with this. So just from the start, like, you hate it is a really strong emotion. Maybe it's a clickbaity title, but it's not really helpful. It's not really helpful to hate and loathe your behavior, because you're just going to make yourself feel like crap.
You have tried to stop. You have promised yourself, this is the last time. You have prayed. You have cried. You have...
I have not prayed. I have not prayed. No. I haven't prayed. I'm sure this is for Christians and stuff, but no, I have not prayed. Definitely not. And excuse me, I am thinner than that. It's a very, very bad. But seriously, I'm getting like... This video was made for me to review, quite frankly. And this is a tiny channel, but it really annoyed me.
Started over more times than you can count. And then...
Okay. So, in my experience, and keep in mind, I'm not a psychologist or any kind of mental health professional, but in my experience, this is a flaw in thinking, that you're starting over from scratch. Okay, that you've gone, maybe you've gone and done therapy, maybe you've sort of talked with people, maybe you've tried really hard and you have slipped in some way. Just say it's a substance addiction, for instance, and you have slipped and you've had a drink or had some substance, and you're like, oh, and now I've got to start over from scratch. You're not starting over from scratch. The way that we want to look at it is that you've learnt things as you've gone along. You've learnt things along a journey, right? You don't go on a journey. You're sitting on the ground. You get up. You start to walk. You go. You trip over, and then you go, oh well, I got to go all the way back to the start. That's sort of fooling yourself that you haven't made any progress, and that isn't a good mindset to be in, because if you have done really well and gone weeks without the problem arising again, and then you sort of relapse or you lapse and you do it again, that isn't starting from scratch, okay? That's not a good way to look at it, because you have learnt things. We have some coping strategies. We have some new coping tools that we can implement, and if they start to work, just one slip up is not going back to the start. So I dislike the framing here to start with, because in any mental health journey, it is a journey, and one stumble or one fall is not going back to the start of that journey. Okay, you've learnt things. And look, during a mental health journey, you're going to have times. Well, I mean, you're incredibly lucky if you don't, but as far as I know, there's going to be times where you do stumble or you don't do as well as you want. But the important thing is not to shame yourself for that. Go, oh, I'm a terrible person for doing that. No. We acknowledge the mistake, we accept it, we acknowledge those feelings that come from it, but do try to be kind to yourself. It's not going back to the very start of the journey. It's not a complete reset. We want to just go, hey, really, really think about what outcomes that you want, and then move on and, slowly get better. I remember a saying from a movie, actually, that I can't remember what it was. I think it was some sort of Denzel Washington movie, but he said, we're not after perfection, just improvement. So if you think of it as, well, I need to improve, rather than I need to eliminate this, right? Like I just need to improve. So if you go from, you have a problem with something, you go from, indulging every day to, you slip up once in a month, that's improvement, and a lot of improvement if you think of it like that. But, you want to eliminate it from your life, that's not a problem, but understand that that journey is not going to be a perfect journey. It never is. It is a journey that, we keep going on. We get back up. But never think that you've just reset your entire journey. You may have gotten a bit of lost, but your journey is still important. You're still on it. It's not a reset. How dare you? How dare you, Dr. Kip? Yeah, I honestly think suing for copyright is a good idea. I'm going to put in a lawsuit for using my likeness. I joke, of course, but yeah, it is uncannily like me, isn't it? It's uncanny. Hang on a sec. I'll try and square my jaw a little.
Without
Yep.
fully understanding how.
That's a good question, Probing Time. How do you know when to stop improving? You don't. You don't stop improving through your life. That's the thing. You do try to get better and better. It is so. When you're really looking at it, it's about, or in my opinion, it's sort of about sort of just improving every day kind of thing, learning new stuff every day. But at the same time, there is no end destination. There's no end goal. There's no, oh, well, once I get to this point, I'm going to be perfect, because there's no such thing as perfection. It isn't a thing. It's a mirage. It's an ideal. It's a sort of distraction. I don't think that, but really it's self-actualization, right? It's just simply, well, I want to be the best version of myself that I can be. I want to be the best person that I can be. But that's not something that is sort of, well, if I get to this image that I've got in my head, if I get to this point, that's the best version of me. That's not how it works. It's just simply improving how you relate to yourself and who you are. Just working on that every day. It's a slow, laborious process, but sort of. I think mental health journeys where you'll get to a point where you feel stable, and you will just go, hey, it's great that I've gotten here, but there's always more I can learn. It's sort of an open-ended question. I hope to be learning things about myself, about others, about the world, about the universe. When I'm if I make it to 90 and pass away, I hope I'm learning new things every day. It would be fantastic. I don't think there's a end goal, but at the same time, you don't need to achieve some sort of perfection image in order to be a good person or have a healthy, meaningful life. It doesn't need to be like that.
Now, you are back in the same place again. Same sin, same situation.
Well, I don't think sinning's a thing. And I get people fall into reoccurring situations. Like, I really get it. I do. It is a behavioral thing. Basically, I've done so much work on CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I think that so there's a number of different therapies that have been clinically proven to be effective and are provided by mental health professionals. And keep in mind, I'm not a mental health professional. I really would, if you are having a problem with some sort of behavior that keeps coming up, that is affecting your life, I always suggest, go to a mental health professional. Go to somebody who has a degree and has done the work in this field. But sort of the ones that he's talking about, or he will be talking about, is sort of the ones that they sort of do cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's a number of them. There's acceptance commitment therapy, or ACT. There's schema therapy, which deals with sort of the almost like the personalities that are developed through our childhood and sort of growing up, and cognitive behavioral therapy, which really tries to interrupt the behaviors that we are doing on a cognitive level. So thinking about why they happen, kind of thing.
Same cycle, same shame. What you are experiencing is not weakness. It is not failure. It is a
Okay, so I've spoken about this before, and he mentioned shame, same shame. And we've really got to push back on that, right? So guilt can be useful, right? If you feel guilty. Shame is not. And it's one of my major problems with religion. So we'll just sort of talk about the difference, and I'll just sort of say what I think the difference between shame and guilt is. Whereas guilt is feeling bad for something you have done, shame is feeling bad because of the person that you are. So when you are ashamed of something, it sort of suggests, and sort of the way that psychologists use it, is that shame is when you internalize it and say, I'm a bad person, right? I'm inherently bad. Now, guilt is saying, well, I did something that was wrong. And that's okay. We can say, hey, I did something that was wrong. I'm really sorry about it. Make amends. Move on. It's fine. But shame is like, I am a terrible person. And it's the internalization of that guilt saying that, hey, this is something that I am. That's a problem. Because if you do that, you are going to feel like crap, and that there's no way to solve the problem. The problem with that is that you're going to feel like crap, and then what happens is those feelings cause you to act in a way, like do a behavior that will make you feel better. So you will usually fall back into those same behaviors, right? It's important to say to people, I'm sorry for what I did. Sort of, I feel guilty about what I did, but that doesn't define me as a person. I am not a bad person. I just did a bad thing. And there's a big difference between that.
loop. And loops are not accidents. They are engineered. There is a specific kind of suffering that is different from ordinary pain. Ordinary pain hurts.
Yeah, I don't think they're called loops in psychology. I think they're called sort of a shame cycle. I mean, you might describe it as a loop, but I don't think that's I mean, they're usually called cycles in psychology. So he's kind of giving, sort of religious terms to things that are known within the actual field. Yeah,
But moves. It has a direction. But a loop, a demonic loop, is pain that
a demonic loop. A demonic loop. So, as you can probably tell, this in no way has been approved by any kind of medical society. Like, how do the demons come into it?
circles. It returns to the same address. It speaks the same accusations. It produces the same consequences. And no matter how many times you escape it temporarily, you find yourself pulled back into it as if by a force stronger than your own will.
Yeah, no, there's no force outside of your will. Usually it is the negative feelings that are associated with the behavior that is reinforcing the behavior. So we basically have, you do behavior, you either, it makes you feel like absolute crap, or you make yourself, or you think of yourself as absolute crap after doing it. You feel bad and terrible because it sort of makes you feel like absolute crap. And then to make yourself feel better, you'll do a behavior that has a short-term benefit, right? A short-term coping mechanism that will in the long term, make you feel like crap, right? It's a perpetuating cycle. And this is the problem in addictions, that you'll get caught in this loop of, say, using substance. It makes you feel great short term. It almost works, and that's important. It almost works because it makes you feel great, but then afterwards you feel like crap. Because you feel like crap, you want to get rid of that feeling, and so you go back for the substance which makes you feel great. Almost works, and then you feel like crap, and the cycle just continues and reinforces. And sort of thinking, oh, I'm a horrible person because I can't break out of this, is really bad, because that just exacerbates those negative feelings.
And that is exactly what it is.
Uh, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Oh, CBD, Central Business District. I mean, you can probably get one in the other, right? You can probably get some cognitive behavioral therapy in the Central Business District, but yeah. So maybe they are related. You don't know.
The loops I am talking about today are real and they are specific. Addiction to substances, to food, to gambling, to shopping, pornography, social.
Yeah, I don't think there's pornography addiction. I don't think that's a thing. Yeah, okay. Like, look, you can argue the benefits and negatives of watching a lot of pornography. I think there's massive problems, especially with underage people having access to it, and it distorts their idea of sexual interaction and how people relationships work and stuff. I think there's massive problems, but this idea of pornography addiction kind of thing, yeah, not so sure about that. Not so sure.
Social media, the endless scroll that steals hours, attention, and peace. Crime, the cycle of offending, consequence, release, and
Okay, so recidivism, which is the reoffending of people that have gone into prison and stuff, I think that's a lot more complex than Mr. Bible Stickman here is pointing out. There's a lot of factors that go into that, some of which are not just how you think about things. I think he's sort of conflating addiction with some other negative behaviors like crime, which it's not just a part of you're not just addicted to crime. That isn't what it is. Don't get me wrong. They're definitely both maladaptive behaviors, but crime's a bit different than just, oh, I'm addicted to crime. I mean, maybe kleptomania, but kleptomania is different than, someone just, criming to get money. There's a whole ton that goes into that. So I think that I would put sort of crime in a different category kind of thing. It is a lot harder to address.
returning. Poverty, generational financial bondage that passes.
I love how he has to like he has to censor bondage. I love that. I love that.
Poverty, generation.
Yeah, poverty isn't just a behavioral thing. Like, I mean, come on now. Come on now. Like, you can't say that, hey, I've got a video, let's address addictions and poverty. Like, seriously? I don't know how you would go, well, I'm poor, I'm in debt, I have a ton of debt on me, I better go see a psychologist. No. 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 Like, you may look at, I'd probably go to a financial person if you had problems with poverty, not a psychologist. I mean,
Financial bondage that passes from parent to child like a surname. Rage, the anger that explodes.
oh, CBD. Oh, is that the cannabinoids? Oh, no, it's not psychoactive, so it's not that. I'm sorry. In Australia, we call the sort of the inner city the central business district. I'm not even lying here. CBD weed. Oh, it is cannabinoid. Cannabinoid. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Oh, it's THC, of course. That's the psychotic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gotcha, gotcha. No, I gotcha, I gotcha.
Explodes, produces destruction, then shame, then a fragile calm, then explosion again. Depression.
Well, I mean, anger problems, yes, I get what you're saying, but it's important not to lump them in with addictions. Not that sort of they can't be addressed by the same toolkit, as it were. Like CBT is really important, and I will go through a little bit of that because I found it incredibly helpful, like just incredibly so. Cannabinoids, yeah.
Toxic relationships. The same kind of wrong person chosen again and again, dressed in a different face. These loops are not identical in their mechanics, but they share one common architecture. The enemy lies to you through his
Okay, so relationships and things like that are not an addiction. Like you're not addicted to bad men or something, or addicted to horrible women or anything like that. No, that's not what's happening. I think that, and don't forget, I'm not a psychological. I'm not a mental health care professional, and so if you do have problems with them, definitely see an actual professional. Not me. I'm just some random dude on the internet, and not certainly not some guy preaching about God on the internet. Like, please see a professional who has, empirically proven and clinically proven treatments. But to my mind, like it may be that schema is probably better for something like um um sort of having relationships with the wrong type of person, or taking relationships that are bad for you. It may be that schema is better for that, which sort of deals with the way your personality and the facets of your personality that develop when you're young, kind of thing. It may be better, it may not be, and that's why it's important to see a mental health care professional. Excuse me. He is looking at the specs. Well, sorry, I am looking at this. Hold it. Does that it is me, really. I gotcha. He's looking at the specifications, going, does this accept Lightning or USB-C? I don't know. What kind of power voltage does this take? That's what he's doing. 100%. I would bet my life on it. Probably. But yes, probably the easy answer is because it's generated by AI who doesn't understand how a phone works. But hey,
demons, through secular culture, through other people, through media, and even through yourself. Every so often, a lie slips past your guard. That lie becomes deception. That deception
a lie slips past your guard. So I think he's trying to tie into CBD. So what's CBD? CPT, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, you really messed me up with that. You really messed me up with that CBD. I tell you what, like how to screw up a streamer. Just throw some letters in there and watch them suffer. That's great. So this is basically the marker for CBT, right? It basically is it's basically that you've got three types of things: thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and each of them leads to the other. Now, I'll just get a marker. So basically, what happens is that you will do a behavior, and it can really start anywhere, right? It can really start at any point along this thing. Um, oh, why doesn't it have access to that? Just 1 second. Sorry. Oh, give me 1 second. Page marker. Uh, okay. I should be able to use a marker on this thing. No, I can't use a marker on this thing. Why can't I use a marker on this thing? Hold it. I've just got to check this out. Um, Oh, interesting. I'll get rid of that and then try it. Nope. Okay, I can't draw on this thing. All right, that's weird. That's very strange. That's really weird. My pen is not working. Please, will you work? No? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so it can start anywhere, but really you want to basically sort of, can you see my cursor? Is that a thing you can see? Hold it, I just gotta. Right, so you want to interrupt in the thoughts section. So you might have a behavior like you make fun of somebody and hurt their feelings accidentally, right? Your thoughts are, oh, well, I'm a terrible person. Others are better than me. I don't like myself. I really hate everything that I am because I'm a horrible, mean person. It's just an example, right? And the feelings that it might promote is sort of insecurity, insufficiency, I'm not good enough, that kind of, sort of inadequate feelings, right? And then the behavior that you go to is maybe makes fun of somebody and hurt their feelings, right? Like, so basically you're talking about sort of a loop where one can reinforce the other. So the thought may be, or it might start from a thought, or it may be that, sort of when you were young, your parents put you down, made you feel like crap, made you feel really sort of not good enough, right? Insufficient, not some really, really, really insecure, like you needed to be better. Your behavior, you make fun of somebody, do a lot of damage to a friendship, maybe. Your thought is, I'm a terrible person, I hate myself, I'm just a horrible, mean, nasty ogre. And then the feeling will be, well, I'm not good enough, right? And then I'm not good enough, you'll do the same behavior. So this is how the loop can work. CBT comes in at the thoughts level, right? Like it tries to interrupt the thoughts level because the feelings that come up, there's nothing you can really do about them, right? So when you feel bad, the inclination is to go, oh, well, I'll just push that down, that I'll just ignore that feeling. I just won't, I won't deal with it. We prolong it. We don't look at how we feel. We just pretend that we're fine. And that's not helpful because generally what a human will do is when a feeling comes up, it'll keep coming up. If you don't acknowledge it and accept that feeling, and here's the thing, no feelings are wrong, okay? Like you never, it is never the case that you're like, well, it's wrong to feel that way, right? Like, you people are terrible. You're throwing in CBS now and CDC. You just don't want me to succeed, do you? You just don't want me. Look, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to succeed, and I'm going to say CBT every single time, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Actually, there's probably a lot you can do to stop me, but hey, I'm going to do my best. So, when we're looking at this, we're trying to interrupt those thoughts because the feelings will just come back up, kind of thing. And if you're just like, oh well, I've got to stop that behavior, you will get you'll get back into that groove again and again and again. And this is what we've realized from sort of psychology, that you can't really do anything about the feelings and you can't really do anything about the behaviors because they just go off the thoughts and feelings. So what we want to do is interrupt the thoughts, like just interrupt that process. And so when, like in my example, you're being mean and nasty to somebody because the feelings made you feel really insufficient and, that you're not good enough. And so the thought we try to interrupt is, no, that's a wrong thought. I'm not mean and nasty. I'm not shaming myself for that. I just did something that was wrong. And, I can apologize for that and say, hey, I didn't mean to be nasty. I was just joking. I'll try not to do it in the future. And I'm really working on, not being a prick to people. And I'm sorry, and that's okay. We can do that. And then the feelings won't be, oh, I'm a terrible person. I'm evil. I'm horrible. And then the behavior won't be, won't be triggered by that feeling of inadequacy. I guess inadequacy is what I'm talking about. You get a lot of this, this specific example, you get a lot of it in sort of where people go for, it's called unrelenting standards. It's where they go for, I've got to be perfect kind of thing, or my work has to be perfect kind of stuff. And so we want to interrupt that and sort of go, no, you don't have to be perfect, and you can make mistakes. It doesn't make you a bad person. We just want to be kind to ourselves and say, hey, I can just, I am good enough is good enough, right? Like, it doesn't make me a bad person, and that will interrupt it. So CBT works around these thoughts. It really is an interruption to these thoughts. And we have less control over our thoughts than we would like. And I know that firsthand. We have a lot of problems having control, especially over what's called intrusive thoughts, things that come back up. So CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, what it is a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. It's basically training your brain not to fall into the same thought patterns, because you have a tendency, because of your brain making connections and strengthening neural connections, of when you start to fall into that pattern of thought, you'll keep going down it. And that's a problem. Hey, Max, I don't know if you rated me, but yeah, if you did, thank you and welcome. Welcome, Max. Did somebody raid me? I don't know. That's okay. I thank you if you did. Really appreciate it. Welcome to the stream. We're talking Christo retroactively fitting religion to psychological principles that we've done over time. It didn't cancel Farscape? Oh, look, that still hurts, Jester. That still hurts. Look, that was an Australian show, and it was really good. It was pretty good. It was a show. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's amazing, but yeah. Yeah. So, and let's take another example. Right? Like, just let's take another example. Like, just say that you have been attacked in the past by muggers or something. Somebody has attacked you. Obviously, it's going to raise feelings of vulnerability, of fear of other people. It's going to raise these sort of feelings. Now, the behaviors might come out as something like aggression towards people. If you show them you're weak, you're going to be aggressive to show that you're strong, kind of thing. That sort of really macho behavior, right? Well, what effect will that have? Well, you're going to be a dick to people, and people are going to be hostile towards you. And so when people are hostile towards you because of the way you're behaving, that will reinforce the thought. People are aggressive. People are going to hurt me. People are going to attack me, right? And that will exacerbate the feelings, which will exacerbate the behaviors, which will again lead to the thoughts of people are going to attack me, or people are just out to get me, and so that's going to lead to those feelings of fear and that you're under threat, and it will just lead to a cycle. And this can be the sort of, when he was talking about the explosive anger, that can be one of them, right? Like that, when you feel hurt, you have these behaviors, right? Those behaviors cause people to do things, and then you have a thought from them. So just say, let's take a real toxic masculine behavior, jealousy, for instance, right? You have feelings of jealousy, and that someone's going to cheat on you, kind of thing. You act like a dick towards your partner or your significant other, and they, are angry with you and don't want to be around you, and, they don't want to come under this kind of scrutiny and sort of have to defend themselves at every opportunity. So they go out and, want to leave, they get distanced from you, and that distance reinforces the thought, right? Oh, they're going to leave me. Right, they're going to leave me. They're going to cheat on me. They're distancing themselves. I'm under this thought that comes up that because my significant other is drawing away from me, they're going to cheat on me, they're going to hurt me, and then that comes the feelings of jealousy all over again. So it's it really is a vicious cycle, right? But CBT, it wants to interrupt that thought, right? It wants to interrupt that thought and say, okay, is there anything sort of empirically, is that a rational thought? Is that a thought that has any kind of evidence or any kind of merit beside it? Or is that a thought that has sort of automatically come up because my mind just goes down that route? Right? So really it's challenging those thoughts that are distorted and pushing back on them and saying, hey, is that actually a thought that has any merit? And it involves a lot of work because those thoughts have been gone down so many times, but it tries to interrupt that pattern of thought. If you can challenge that pattern of thought, the feelings will be different, right? So instead of that jealousy, you will instead think, hey, they could just want some space because they're having a hard time, right? They could want that space because they are overworked. They could want that space because we need to work on our relationship. They could want that space because, hey, at the end of the day, I'm being a dick to her, right? And pushing back on that thought, the feelings that will come up are quite different, and that will change the behaviors. And I really wish I could write on this this board. Give me one sec. I'll try and find a copy I can, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what my pen is working on one page, but it's not working on all the others, which is really weird. I don't mind telling you. It's very strange. It's very strange. Huh. Well, time to get a new pen plug in, I think. But yeah, it basically goes from thoughts to feelings to behaviors. It tries to sort of short circuit the thoughts because there's nothing we can do about the feelings and nothing we can really do about the behaviors that we're taking off of those feelings. And trying to interrupt between the thoughts and behaviors is really hard to do. Like once you get those feelings come up, it's very hard to just go, no, I'm not going to do that behavior. I'm not going to do that behavior. I'm not going to do that. That's incredibly difficult to do once, though, you know, your feelings are up. You've got a lot of emotions flowing through you and you want to try and stop doing what you're doing. It's very, very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do. So that's what it's designed to do. So this is sort of the loops that he's talking about. But you know, spoiler alert, he's not going to go for cognitive behavioral therapy.
Becomes a thought pattern. That thought pattern becomes a behavior. That behavior becomes a...
No, that is incorrect. The thought pattern generates feelings. The feelings are what contributes to behavior. Yes, the thoughts do in some degree, sure, but it's more that the behaviors, and like I said, we have less control over behaviors than we would like to admit, basically. This whole idea of, oh, well, I have complete, solid control over what I do, it's not as simple as that. We have these emotions that contribute to how we behave, and we've got to acknowledge and understand that. So if you do, you know, if you're in a high tense situation with a lot of fear, your behaviors can be very different. You don't just, you know, it's kind of like it's a terrible term, but they call it your lizard brain. It will really influence your behaviors, what you do based upon how you feel. So we have to acknowledge that the thoughts lead to feelings, which lead to behaviors.
Habit, that habit becomes a long-term cycle, and that cycle is what the Bible calls spiritual bondage.
Yeah, this is sort of taking modern psychological concepts and sort of retroactively putting them into the Bible, right? Spiritual bondage. Yet I love how he's got to like censor it out because he doesn't want to put bondage on the page. I just find that hilarious because bondage isn't necessarily, a BDSM. It just, it's just a, some person can be in bondage when they're in slavery. It just is a a state of being bonded. It's very straight. It makes me laugh every time I see it. I'm sorry. It's funny. So spiritual bondage in the Bible. I'm not even sure where it says that in the Bible. Yeah, spiritual bondage refers to being enslaved by sin, fear, or demonic influence. Yeah, it's not that, right? Sin, fear. It's not necessarily fear, right? Like it's not necessarily fear, and it certainly isn't demonic influence. It is so maladaptive behaviors in this cycle. So when you're talking about addiction, for instance, overindulging in some sort of substance is a maladaptive behavior. It is a behavior that that it basically addresses the feeling and it gets rid of the feeling, but it has long-term consequences that are disastrous for your life, right? So it's not, it's not what he thinks it is. It's because those feelings come up, you feel like crap, you want to get rid of the feeling, and then you do behavior that you think that short term gets rid of the feeling, right? Like, so in the example where someone is being a horrible prick to people because they feel inadequate, it does get rid of it for a second. But, he feels all powerful while he's doing this. But the problem is that later on, he's like, I'm a piece of crap,
You have not been fighting the surface. You have been trimming a tree that has deep roots. And today, we are going after the roots.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's talking about, psychologists don't use these words generally, but I think what he's talking about is core beliefs, right? So you have beliefs, sure, you have a whole bunch of beliefs, they're based upon certain things. Core beliefs are ones that you've really taken, you've internalized kind of thing, that are really core to who you are. And they're very difficult to break, right? Core beliefs are very, very difficult to break, but mostly you're not dealing with core beliefs. You're not dealing with those deep-seated beliefs you've had for all of your life. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think that he's sort of talking about that, but it's hard to be sure.
Can break out of a demonic loop, you have to understand how it was built.
Not demonic. There's no demons in here. And how was the loop built?
Because most people are fighting their symptoms while the actual stronghold remains completely untouched underground. A stronghold in the spiritual sense is a mindset based on deception, an ungodly imagination, an argument against the truth, a deceptive way of reasoning. Strongholds are deceptive thought patterns, and once established, those ungodly thought patterns become ungodly behavior patterns.
Yeah, I think he's just talking about distorted thoughts here. And they don't just become behavior. We've got to look at it through, yeah, they influence behavior, but they also generate emotions which influence behavior. And so a lot of the time, we will see this all the time, that people doing horrible behaviors usually have some sort of emotionality, whether that is some sort of anger, fear, it does flow through there. So he's completely missing that out. And a lot of the time, Christians and other religious people will ascribe those negative emotions, right, to demonic influences, and they'll go, "Begone, demon," or I don't, that I'm going to purge that from my life. That demonic sort of emotion of, say, lust or anger or fear or whatever. And like I said, if you just try to push emotions out, they'll just come back twice as strong, because emotions are there to tell you something. There is no wrong emotions, right? Now, the thoughts may be wrong. The thoughts that give you that emotion may be wrong. They may be imprecise or not correct, but it is not the emotion, right? The emotion is always right, or always valid, I should say, because emotions aren't really truth apt, right? They don't tell you things. So a thought like, my girlfriend is cheating on me, right? That is a truth apt statement. That is a truth apt thought. There's some truth to it or not. The feeling of insecurity, anger, fear, upset, disgust that comes up, that isn't truth apt because it's not talking about anything. It's not sort of, it can't be said to be true or false. It just is. But emotions always tell you something. I mean, it might tell you something about the situation. It might tell you something about yourself. The question is, why do you feel this way? And I think that's what he's getting at. Like, you know, sort of, it's a deep-rooted thing. Well, yeah, but the emotion shouldn't be left out of this equation, ever. Because it is important to acknowledge it and say, okay, what's it telling me about myself? And so it may be that your thought is completely wrong. Like, you are completely wrong that your girlfriend's cheating on you. Absolutely wrong. Absolutely an error. That is not true. You know, that is something that your brain has cooked up because it's a thought pattern you go down when you feel like she's drawing away, or you feel, you know, or her behavior is distant, or she doesn't interact with you as much as you want. You know, all of these things. But acknowledging the thought without saying, well, the thought is right, or the emotion is right. Acknowledging the emotion without going, the emotion is right. It's our thoughts that can be right or wrong. Our emotion simply tells us about the state that we are in. That's all. It's never right or wrong. But it's important to acknowledge it because emotions are always valid, and you have to acknowledge that they've come up, even the crappy ones. Even the ones that are like, I feel like utter crap today. We've got to say, yeah, I feel like crap. Yes, thank you, body. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you. I mean, you know, we all feel like crap occasionally, and acknowledge it because it's just a feeling. Now, the thoughts that led you down that path, or why you do, that can be varied, right? But we have to acknowledge how we feel, because just pushing it down and trying to soldier on is not a good long-term coping strategy. It may almost work, but it never completely works. But it's okay. We can acknowledge it, move on. I know we've all got stuff to do. I know we've all got things we want to get done. You know, we've got a job to do. We've got things to do. I've felt like crap in the morning a lot of times. It's like, well, thank you. Thank you for letting me know that I am not the best today, and that's okay. You know, the worst thing you can do is say, hey, I feel like crap. I should feel great. What's wrong with me? Why can't I feel good like all of these other people? That's the worst thing you can do. You know, that will not make you feel better, strangely enough. But acknowledging it and sitting with it and experiencing it, it will, I mean, I'm not going to talk for you, but for me, it usually goes away at that point because you have acknowledged it. You've said, yeah, I feel like shit today. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm allowed to feel like shit. My body just, for some reason, I feel like shit. Maybe I watched too much Trump news the night before, you know, and this world has gone crazy. And that's okay. It happens. I get it.
Patterns. Those behavior patterns are what we call spiritual bondage. 2 Corinthians 10:4-5 says, "The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds."
Yeah, okay. So if he is equating strongholds to sort of core beliefs kind of thing, I'm not sure that equation flies, like pulling down of strongholds. I suppose it does. He's kind of mixing metaphors for me, but it's not a demon, like you're not getting spiritual weapons to do it. The way that psychologists, and keep in mind, as I keep saying, I'm not a psychologist. I've done therapy. I've done my fair share of therapy. I've done. My mother was a psychologist, but I am not a mental health care professional. So as always, if you are having problems in your life that we need to address, see a mental health professional. Don't take some idiot's word for it on YouTube, and I'm not talking about this guy, I'm talking about me, right? Don't take my word for it on the internet. See a mental health care professional. What works for one person, like CBT, I found to be amazing. It doesn't work for everybody, right? Some people respond better to schema. Some people respond better to ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy, which is sort of the acceptance and commitment is sort of accepting those feelings and then committing to some sort of change to help you and incrementally making things better. It's a different type of therapy. It works better for some people and better on some problems, right? Like there are some problems that, like I said, if you're looking at patterns of behavior that are caused by distorted thoughts, CBT is really good. If you're looking at patterns of behavior that have been core behaviors from your childhood, for instance, schema therapy is better. Like, it depends on what kind it is. So that's why it's important to talk to a medical professional, because they will probably be able to direct you to the therapies that are good for you. And sometimes you will do a therapy and it's not the best, but what they talk about, they don't talk about it as weapons and conflict. It is they talk about it as tools, and you have a toolbox. You have a number of tools that you can use to cope with the emotions that come up. We have a number of tools to incrementally change the thoughts that we have, and a number of tools to help with the behaviors that happen. Like all of this whole idea about fighting is not good. It's not good. Because, it suggests that we want to destroy these things, destroy the loop, destroy all this stuff. No, we want to fix it. We want to correct it. We want to align it. We want to manage it. It's not about destruction. We cannot do away with some of those intrusive thoughts that come up. Like, you must have had one sometime in your life. You're just chilling out, and a stupid thought comes up. You know what I mean? Like, you're sitting around and you're like, oh, well, I could get absolutely hammered tonight, kind of thing. Even though it's a school night, even though you shouldn't, even though there's disastrous consequences tomorrow. Oh, I could absolutely get plastered tonight. And then you go, yeah, that's a dumb idea. I've got work to do tomorrow. That would be awful, right? But the thought still comes up. So the whole idea about destroying these things, we don't do that. What we do is we have tools to enable us to correct things that comes up or take a healthy response to them. I really dislike, why is it that Christianity is so like hell-bent on, the war on Christianity, and we're fighting the atheists, and we're in a spiritual war against sin, and all of this stuff. It is so detrimental to a very well-considered view of the world, because no one's at war with you. It's not a war. This is the thing that blows me away as an atheist. I have these conversations with Christians and they'll tell me, we're in a war. And it's like, look, I'm not in a war with anybody, right? I'm not at war, okay? This isn't a thing. It's really, really weird.
Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing
Yeah, and John, I totally get you, mate. I totally get you. And mental health treatment costs money. Look, I am a strenuous proponent that governments should do more to provide mental health treatments. Absolutely should do more. But my worry is that a lot of, and I hate to bash on religion. A lot of self-help does this as well, but they kind of insert themselves where the mental health industry sort of lacks the ability to cover. So these sort of spiritual based therapies, which don't really have a clinical evidence based results to draw upon, or the sort of self-help industry, which is don't get me wrong. These this spiritual therapy and the the self-help stuff, they may have stuff in that can be incredibly useful. Like, I'm not saying they're all bad kind of thing. I'm not saying they all suck. I'm not saying that every Christian is that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's people that study this all their lives and have put together, and we've built up how it works. But the problem is that, yeah, in definitely in some countries that's unaccessible, or inaccessible, I should say. That is reprehensible in my opinion. That should be something that we should focus on, rather than, oh, I don't know, bombing other countries. Some mental health for the people. Especially because bombing other countries usually leads to situations that damage mental health. I know that my mental health was damaged by the craziness that's going on at the moment. So, if we could focus on that, that would be fantastic. That would be great. I would really like it. And I think that religion and the self-help industry, and I think that they do a lot to keep that sort of that gap there, because that's where they operate. But having said that, there's also stigma behind mental health. If you go see a mental health professional, there's something wrong with you. I want it to be, I want people to say, if you go see a mental health professional, if nothing else, there is something right about you, right? That you have done something that is good for you. Like, imagine if, you say, well, if you go to a doctor for a checkup, there's something wrong with you. I mean, who would say that? Who would say that? So why don't we think the same about mental health? I have no idea. I have no idea.
Every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. Notice what Paul says the target is. Not behavior, not habits, not the external expression of the bondage. The target is imaginations, thought patterns, the internal architecture that produces the external.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Paul did not say that the target is thought patterns. I think that they are retroactively putting that into the Bible. I noticed that he doesn't provide any verses where Paul says this. And I could not find anything that would suggest that Paul said, hey, we're going to target the thought patterns rather than the external world or our behavior. It just isn't a thing. It's very, very strange. I think what they're doing is retroactively fitting modern psychological principles, and they're retroactively going, oh, look, we can interpret the Bible like this. That's what they meant. And they do a lot of that. Christians do a lot of that. They will take something that science has discovered, like, heliocentrism or the Big Bang Theory, and they say, oh, well, look, the Bible says that Yahweh spread the universe out like a blanket. That's referring to the Big Bang. They will retroactively fit scientific principles into their Bible.
Loop. You cannot permanently stop an addiction by gritting your teeth against the craving.
No, you can't. You can't. Yeah, you can't.
Not break a pornography loop by simply avoiding screens. You cannot escape a poverty cycle by working harder alone.
Well, poverty's a bit different. I mean, poverty is, there's debt cycles, there's that kinds of things, but there's more to debt cycles than just, psychology. There's more to it than that. There's sort of, I think that's really lacking, because debt is a physical thing. It's external. It is financial burdens upon you. Like, I think that this is really bad if you're like, well, go to a psychologist or go to your pastor if you want help with debt. Probably someone in finance would be a good idea. I mean, possibly there's behaviors like gambling or substance abuse which are contributing to that debt, but debt, really?
Because the behavior is downstream from the belief, and the belief is what the demonic stronghold has constructed. Ephesians 6:12.
So, if we're talking about belief as in thoughts, right? Like, beliefs are thoughts that, enforce some kind of value or some kind of thing. I get you, but then what's the demonic stronghold? Because I thought that was the thoughts. I mean, that could be the emotions, right? Because it goes both ways. Your thoughts influence your emotions and your emotions influence your thoughts. But we're not, I feel like he's sort of saying, hey, you've got to address it at the emotional level. And that is not a good idea, because all you'll be doing is suppressing emotions. Suppressing emotions does not work out well, because they come back with a vengeance. You'll basically, your brain will go, no, look, there's this thing that's happening. And you'll go, begone, demon, I push you away. And then it will go, no, 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 really, there's this thing. So this is the problem with repressing thought, repressing emotions, right? Like repressing what you feel, that it doesn't actually work. So this pattern, and you'll notice this with some Christians in the form of their sexual repression. They will repress these thoughts or these emotions, these feelings of attraction. They'll repress them and repress them and repress them, and they'll just come back so strong because your body is going, no, you've got to feel this. Like it is your body telling you there is something to pay attention to. And so repressing emotions, it's just another thing that almost works. It almost works, but it doesn't work. Yeah, and that's why I was like, noise ending, I completely agree with you. That's why I was pissed off. I was going to do Joe Kirby this week, and I sort of said earlier I was going to do Joe Kirby in another stream. No, this one pissed me off, so I decided to do this one because it really annoyed me. And it's a tiny channel, and I feel like I'm punching down because it is like a tiny channel of 100 and something people, but it really annoyed me, so I decided to do it.
Tells us our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces.
No such thing as spiritual forces. So a lot of the time when when religious people are talking about spiritual forces, they're really talking about emotions. They're really talking about, how they feel. Like the Holy Ghost is this feeling of, joy and euphoria that you get, kind of thing. Like, so when they're talking about the spiritual, a lot of the time they're just describing emotions. So battling against your emotions is not a good strategy. It's not. We want to interrupt the thoughts, feel the emotions and accept them and acknowledge them. Well, I was going to say it probing time. You know what? I've got an emoji for this that I haven't used in ages. I've got a keep calm and masturbate emoji. There you go. Keep calm and masturbate. Yeah, but yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And, it's fascinating. I mean, I can point to, for instance, what was it, Kirsty Gnome's husband? Like, and then they're the most Hippocratic, they're the biggest hypocrites ever, right? Because you have someone like that who is like, well, I'll push down these feelings. Next thing you know, he's on a social media site with fake breasts. And which I found hilarious. Now, usually I wouldn't kink shame somebody. Usually I would say, look, you want to go and engage with women with fake boobs, and that's you having the fake boobs, not the women. All for it. Well, you go, you do you, boo. You go wild. Like, hey, enjoy. Usually I would not kink shame somebody, but considering their entire group of Kirsty Gnomes, her husband, his friends, MAGA people that they're associated with are all anti-trans, the level of hypocrisy there is like, what the hell? Seriously. So, hey, I'm not kink shaming, I am hypocrisy shaming. Oh, look, he's hey, that reminds me. Yeah, it's definitely AI hands, but it reminds me of who was that guy in X-Men First Class, the one that absorbed energy? That's what it reminds me of. Sebastian something, I can't remember his name. Who was the main villain in X-Men First Class? Sebastian Shaw, I want to say. No, not Sebastian Stan, he's an actor. Come on, Google. Come on. Yeah, Sebastian Shaw. I don't know if he had like a supervillain name, but like he absorbs energy kind of thing. That's what it reminds me of. At least Pam Bondage is out. Yeah, not a moment too soon. Maybe the files will be released now. Somehow I doubt it. Somehow I doubt it, Chester. Somehow I doubt it. And apparently you can't write bondage on YouTube because this guy's censoring it out. Yeah, Sebastian Shaw.
This indicates that many of the challenges we face are rooted in a spiritual battle.
Yeah,
These
they're not.
influences can lead to recurring sins or negative emotions.
That is not the way to use a computer, sir. That is not the way to use a computer. Look, you can't... For ergonomics, if you type from that position, your back is going to die. Your back is going to die. Like, seriously, you are not only screwing up the practice of psychology, you're also screwing up the practice of ergonomics. Okay, it's very important. Take it from somebody whose job used to be sitting and typing and typing and typing and typing and typing. You will die if you try that. No, ergonomics is really important, guys. Trust me. Like you think, oh, you know, my posture and stuff at a desk, what does it matter? Yeah, do 8 hours a week for like 10 years and you suddenly will have a different opinion. 100%.
Trapping us in a cycle that seems never-ending. The loop feels personal because it is playing out in your personal life, but its origin is not personal. It is spiritual.
It's not spiritual, and it is personal. The origin is personal. It can be a mix of things which cause this. It can be, you know, a mixture of feelings and thoughts and behaviors, and they all spiral. It's not as simple as it gets dropped on you from some spiritual realm. It's not that simple. And it may be to do with things that have happened to you in your past, or behaviors that you've taken in your past, or thought patterns that you've engaged in. But it's not as simple as it just comes from one place. It's a spiritual origin, and that's what you've got to address. Even though the origin may be your emotions, like how you felt when this first happened to you. And schema therapy, it sort of will go into, or my experience of it is, will go into, like, when's the first time you felt this way? You know, looking back on your life. When did you first feel this thing, this emotion? So when did it first come up? And how, you know, what thoughts came up with it? How do you think when that emotion comes up? So it goes in a lot more into its origins, but CBT is only concerned with what thought keeps coming up and challenging that thought and thinking more critically about whether that thought is actually accurate or a distortion. So CBT gets less into the origin. Schema does get into the origin of stuff a lot more than CBT, because it's concerned with how that facet of your personality was developed.
And that is actually good news, because what a spiritual weapon built, a greater spiritual authority can tear down. Let me name them directly.
Yeah, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. Like, we've got no spiritual realm to tear down. It's this strongholds and stuff is ridiculous. It's stupid.
Because the enemy operates through vagueness and secrecy, and naming a thing is the beginning of power over it. The addiction loop, whether substances, alcohol, food, gambling, or shopping. Romans 6:16 says, "We become slaves to whatever we obey." Every time you return to the substance, you are not just making a choice, you are renewing a covenant with a master.
No. And it's important to understand that it's not about, you know, this whole thing about you've got no control, and, you know, it is just making a choice. That's what it is. The question is, how do we get control over that choice? Right? Because you can say all you want. When you make a choice, you're making a covenant with the devil on your addiction. You're making a covenant with the devil, and you've got to break the covenant. No, we want to get in before that and say, hey, what is it that of my thoughts that is leading me down to this? And addiction is really difficult. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a psychologist. Again, I'm not a mental health professional, but I have done therapies with a lot of people, like group therapies and things, which are also useful. Connection's really useful. Going through addiction, and it's not as simple as, oh, well, I've made a covenant with the devil. No, absolutely not. But we want to get in for CBT at the thought level. Like, I could really use a drink. Okay, but what are the consequences of that? Challenge that thought. Does that actually work? Will you feel better in the long run? And you've got to provide some strategies for coping with the emotions that come up. Because with addiction, the problem isn't addiction. Okay, the problem isn't addiction. Addiction isn't really the problem. That's a symptom of a greater problem. Like, it may be that every time that you do certain things, you feel like crap, and a drink makes you feel better. A drink makes me feel better. Does it? Like, at the end of the day, if that is disastrously impacting your life, it doesn't make you feel better. Right? It will lead to terrible, horrible circumstance that make you feel like shit. So it's important to know and challenge that and say, no, it won't make me feel better. It will, down the road, make me feel like crap. If that is the case, right? Like, if somebody has drinks and they, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not hassling alcohol in general. If somebody has alcohol and it doesn't affect their life, then it's not a problem. It's not a problem. But we want to be honest with ourselves. If it does affect your life negatively, and here's the thing, usually substance addiction is some sort of coping strategy, right? It's a coping strategy for emotions that you can't deal with. Okay, so some emotions come up, you feel vulnerable, you feel, all of this other stuff. Alcohol is sort of a coping mechanism. And that may have been necessary at one point. That's the misunderstanding. These maladaptive coping strategies, these harmful coping strategies that we sort of build, may have gotten you through a really hard time. I know that some of the behaviors that I had when younger got me through a hard time in my life that I probably wouldn't have survived if I didn't do them. Right? Like, here's the thing. It just saying, hey, alcohol bad, is not realistic. Just even saying, oh, you are an alcoholic, that's bad. Just stop. Stop and go, well, that's an unhealthy coping strategy. How do we develop some healthy coping strategies? How do we replace that with something that isn't so destructive to your life? That addiction to drinking may have got somebody through a situation, like, just say they and I'm not talking about anybody, just their marriage broke up, they lost a child, they had some problems, they lost their job. Maybe that drinking got them through it, right? Like, maybe that got them through. So it's important to understand that these maladaptive behaviors aren't necessarily a bad thing, depending on the situation, but we want to try, if that person is really, we want to try to replace it with some healthy coping strategies that they can deal with the problems in their lives that were healthy and promote well-being in their lives. Me, myself, like, because I had a lot of bullying going on, I had a lot of trauma when I was younger, a lot of my coping strategy was isolation, and I would play video games, right? That was my coping strategy. I would isolate myself completely. And, just cut myself off from everybody and not engage with anybody, be absolutely alone by myself, play computer games, read books, do things, but not actually socially interact with anybody. Now, that's a terrible coping strategy. A lot of the thoughts that came up were about how bad a person I was, how nobody liked me, how all of this stuff was awful, how, you know, or you know, I was not even a person worth knowing. Now that's something I've had to challenge, right? It's been very hard for me over my life. I've had to challenge that a great deal. And as you've noticed, I'm not isolating. I'm sitting here chatting with you. I love engaging with people. That did not happen overnight. It didn't just go, I didn't just go, oh, well, I'm, you know, 25 now. I'm gonna be a completely different person. It is, look, I probably play a bit too much video games than I want to. And one of my things is I try not to say should with my behavior, because that's just saying, hey, there's something that I'm failing in kind of thing. I try to say I want to. So I want to do other things. I want to do certain things. You know, but I'm trying to be kind to myself and say, hey, it's okay. And at the time, that got me through a really hard point in my life that I may not got through without it. Okay, so it's important not to go, well, you're a bad person for doing this. You're a bad person if you suffer from alcoholism. You're just a drunk. You're just a terrible person. No, that may have been the only coping strategy available to them to get through what they were going through. Hooligan for 28 months says, message, you can't play too many video games. Yeah, I know. Look, I don't think I play too much. I think that I want to play more with people and socialize in them. That's what I want to do. But thank you, Hooligan. Always a supporter. You are a champ. You are a champ, and I love talking with you. You hassling me being upside down, a bad coping mechanism? Look, I didn't have a choice over that one. You're going to have a kangaroo saddle. Yeah, so if anybody in America complains about the price of fuel, don't complain to me. I'm sorry. So I did this the other day. Price of fuel in Australia in US dollars per gallon, right? Because it's gallons, not liters. Look, we have to convert currency and we have to convert thingos. So, Australian price for gas, I think you call it gas. We call it petrol. You call it gas. At the moment is $6 per gallon, or $6.03 per gallon. Okay, $6. So when it gets to $6 American dollars per gallon, come and talk to me, because that's what it costs at the moment. That is what it costs at the moment. Oh, we've been rated by In Time. Why isn't that coming up in my notifications? Has the YouTube broken again? Probably. I mean, probably. And to acknowledge my feelings, I feel frustrated at YouTube's breaking and not telling me about raids. But if there is an in-time raid, hey, time travelers, welcome. It's always good to see you. We're talking about Christo-psychology today, which is not a thing. And do keep in mind that I am not a mental health professional. All of this is my opinion, and I don't claim to be. If you are having problems with your mental health, please do see a professional, not just some random person on the YouTubes. Because we have doctors, we have mental health professionals. Yeah, it's going to get a lot more expensive. Yes. Yeah. I can't help but feel that sort of doing more work on electric cars before now would have been a really good idea. I was calling for it. Lots of people were calling for it. It's kind of frustrating that your government ignores that, and then this happens.
The addiction loop works because the substance offers a short circuit.
Oh, geez, I almost missed it. Yeah, Left-Handed Jedi gives out 5 readerships. Thank you so much, Jedi. You are a champ. I will go through. Have to get my announcer voice. So if you're new to the channel, if you just came over from In Time, I do an announcer voice, my best announcer voice for all of the readership. So if you do want me to read out your name in an announcer voice, take a membership and I'll read it out in a bad announcer voice, the best I can do. But, you know, it's just something stupid that I do because I can. Because I can. Welcome. That goes out to Ninjester, Griff, 01, Marvo, Marvison. Always acknowledge the Clippy avatar. Thank you. H.I. Aristoteles. Or is it supposed to be Hi Aristoteles? Look, that's good enough. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but that's good enough. Omnivore 21. Winners, chicken dinners. Thank you so much, Left-Handed Jedi. I really appreciate it. Lot of love. Thank you so much for the raid, Nick. Really appreciate it. Actually, Nick's been doing some fantastic work on news and things. One of the reasons why my mental health is so poor, but that is not Nick's fault. Okay, that's not Nick's fault. Nick didn't make the news. He just reports it. And I keep watching it because, you know, I feel like politics and world news at the moment is like a train wreck. It's awful. I can't look away. It's terrible. Yeah, I don't know. You call it gasoline? Kenvet says $2 to help keep the lights on. Thank you. And if we don't keep the lights on, I wouldn't have this shiny bald head. You know, the lights go out, you've got a dull head. And nobody wants to see Mark's dull head. Okay, that's phrasing. Phrasing. What the hell? Phrasing, Mark. Phrasing. Oh, Alex, good about vehicle charging. But thank you, Kenvet. Yeah, this is to cover like 1/16th of 1% of a tank of petrol for me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
To relief, numbing pain, creating false peace, simulating joy that God alone was designed to provide.
Yeah, no, I feel like at this point he's kind of trying to switch the addiction from substance to the addiction of God, basically. I'm not going to say religious addiction is a thing. I think that some people are way too into it. That may just be a personal bias, but I think that some people are way too into it. I don't think anything should be your identity. You know, your identity should not be the thing that you're doing. It should not be your job. It should not be anything like it. Your identity should be formed of your beliefs and your core values, not what you're doing or what you're worshipping or the church you're in or the group that you're in or you being an atheist. Your identity should be made up of more than these sort of facets of what you do. I think it's always dangerous when people start talking like this because the problem is that he's sort of saying only God can provide relief from this. But I know because I don't believe in a God and I've broken cycles, what he's calling loops or sort of shame cycles or cycles of thought, and I've broken them without a God. So I know it's not needed. I know it's not needed.
The stronghold whispers, you cannot cope without this. That is the lie. That lie is the root. The pornography loop.
That lie is the root. Like, yes, you do get thoughts that say, I cannot cope without this, say, substance in my life, without this thing in my life. It's important to challenge those thoughts. But they're not the root cause, but they're where we have to work at, say, in what he's talking about, which I think is cognitive behavioral therapy, interrupting the thoughts and challenging them. So sort of saying, because what that will do, and as I sort of had on my little graphic here, what that will do is if you have the thought, I can't cope without this thing, it will send you back to a feeling of hopelessness. And it will make you feel like crap, and that will inform your behaviors, as well as the thought, but also the feeling. So we want to interrupt in the thought and challenge the thought. So he's not wrong, but this whole thing about a stronghold and the lie is the stronghold. No, stop. Stop. It's just your thoughts, and you can challenge your thoughts. We all have thoughts that come up that are stupid. Like our brain just says something to us, and you go, wow, that was a dumb thought. And that's okay. That's all right. Like my example of, hey, I could get absolutely hammered tonight. Or why don't I get absolutely hammered tonight? And you know you've got to work tomorrow, and you know it's a dumb idea, and your brain will toss it up, and you go, yeah, that would be absolutely stupid, because I will suffer tomorrow. So that's the idea of challenging thoughts. Not trying to destroy them, not going, how dare you come up, right? Like not trying to crush them or get rid of them or stop it. They're called intrusive thoughts. We don't have to eliminate them. We just have to know and have a toolbox and some tools in order to challenge them, in order to say, hey, I can recognize that's a distorted thought.
One of the most devastating loops of this generation because of its accessibility and the specific way it rewires the brain. Addictions manifest in the flesh but are fueled by spiritual battles.
No, they're not fueled by spiritual battles. They're fueled by thoughts and emotions, and more specifically, really emotions. So it is that the solution or the coping mechanism that almost works. It almost works. You know, it makes you feel better. You don't feel so down. You feel good. You feel like you're on top of the world. You have a fantastic time, and it almost works. But it doesn't down the track. When the substance is over, you feel like crap again. And look, we know that's what happens, right? Like some people are like, you know, I will drink today, I'll probably feel like crap tomorrow, hangover, drink water, have lots of food, try to alleviate it, but, you know, it's not a problem. It's when we're using that substance to cope with feelings that we can't otherwise process, right? Like you may feel sad and depressed and down, so you know, to say you drink and you feel happy and warm again and you're having a good time. And then it ends and you feel down and depressed because the actual problem was never addressed. All we did is mask it with some sort of substance, right? So it's important that we've got to go, and the only way we can get to a healthy coping mechanism for those feelings is to acknowledge them, is to feel them. And that sucks because it's crap. It's terrible to have to be able to, you know, feel these emotions. But like I said, if you're just covering up, they'll never go away. And that's the addiction loop. That's where they get into, well, I feel like crap again, but if I have a beer or I have some alcohol and get plastered, it'll fix me right up. I'll feel so much better. Wears off, can't handle the feelings, feel depressed, feel down, can't cope. Alcohol again, and that's the loop. Ninja's in for $10 US. True, no one wants to see Mark's dull head, so here is a little help to keep it shiny, like a treasure from a sunken pirate wreck. Scrub the deck and make it look shiny. I'm not supposed to. Am I supposed to sing that? Is that out of what's that animated thing with Dwayne the Rock Johnson? Moana? Is it Moana? I almost said Goanna there. Moana? Shiny like a treasure from a sunken pirate wreck. Scrub the deck and make it look shiny. Okay. All right, I'm giving away way too much of my knowledge of Disney properties. Look, I don't have a problem with Moana. I don't have a problem. It was a nice anime. It was nice. It was good. I like it didn't have any real villain at all. Maybe I'm spoiling it, but it didn't really have a villain. Sort of nobody and everybody was kind of awful. Maybe the crab was a villain. I don't know. He was pretty villainous. Actually, maybe he was the villain. Aren't we all the villain at some point? Aren't we all villains? Aren't we all? I think that was from The Crow.
Raging in the mind and soul. Trauma creates torment, and torment creates cycles that are hard to break with.
I don't like the way, he's not wrong. He's not wrong, right? That trauma, hardship, suffering creates negative emotions that we have to cope with. And there are healthy ways to do it and unhealthy ways to do it, right? So usually trauma creates negative emotions, which we cope with in certain ways. and our coping mechanisms become reinforced. So I don't like the way that he's sort of describing it here, because it's not really accurate to what happens.
And torment creates cycles that are hard to break without spiritual intervention.
Yeah, it doesn't require spiritual intervention. It requires healthy coping mechanisms, and it requires us to be able to challenge distorted thoughts, because we can't change our emotions. We have less control over our behaviors than we would like to think, right? So those, we kind of have to go for the thoughts, because those we can have control over, or we can at least challenge them. Those intrusive thoughts that keep coming up, we can at least challenge them and say, hey, that's not accurate. And that's where CBT comes in. It's basically teaching yourself and having the tools to be able to challenge and think differently about what is happening to you, right?
The pornography loop feeds on shame, because shame drives the person deeper into secrecy, and secrecy deepens the loop.
Well, the shame cycle sort of runs throughout all of them, and I'll sort of explain what I mean by that. So even in addiction, so the way that he's sort of saying, hey, this one is shame, this one is fear, this one is... No. There's... The human mind is way more complex than that. Way more complex. Like, the people that I've done group therapy with that had substance addiction problems, they would be incredibly shameful that they relapsed, right? They relapsed again and again, and they were so ashamed of it. And that shame is not helpful or healthy, right? That if you are having problems with a substance and you relapse, I think the worst thing you can do is go, oh, I'm a terrible person, I'm just awful, I'm broken, I'm nothing. No, you just stumbled, you had a relapse. It's not the end of the world. You're not a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're cursed to forever do this. No. That is a thought we can challenge, but that shame, that emotion isn't really healthy, right? Because the thought informs the emotion. The thought will say, oh, I'm never getting off this. I am a terrible person. You've got to challenge that. And so the shame, like, because we can't change the emotion, right? It will come up and it is crappy. So it's not just pornography, right, that is the problem. The shame, yeah. So don't be ashamed of it. That's the thing. He's vilifying all pornography, and this is what the churches do. They will sort of say all pornography is bad. It's all bad. You're an addict if you look at it once. And I've seen this problem before. Who was it? It was there was a woman that was sort of tying up her kids and was an influencer. And she was seeing somebody who thought that if you look at porn, you're addicted to it. No. And she was strapping her kids down. It was a big deal a while back. I should have researched this because I knew I was going to talk about it. But she was seeing somebody. It was Ruby Frank that was doing it. And she was seeing a psychologist who was sort of telling her that any looking at porn is just, you're addicted to it, and that any man that looks at porn is bad, kind of thing, and they're a sexual deviant and all of this kind of stuff. Hillebrand, I think her name was. Give me one sec. Is it Hillebrand? Is it Hillebrand? Yeah, Jody Hillebrand. So Jody Hillebrand was a psychologist that basically was a religious person, really giving some horrendous advice, because she was essentially telling her that men were terrible, if they look at any porn whatsoever, they're a sexual deviant, and they just want to, accost people and do horrible things to people, and really vilified the whole thing. Now, don't get me wrong, porn addiction can be bad. I get you, yes, but what we sort of consider to be, say, a disorder, or what I would consider to be a disorder, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a mental health professional. Like, I don't know if this is accurate, but when it really is influencing your life to a negative degree, we would say, hey, we've got to do something about that. It's addictive. It's destroying certain parts of your life. If you're unable, Skeptic Ravenhabe, welcome. You know what? YouTube is just not telling me that there's raids. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Skeptic Haven. Really good channel. Go subscribe. It's really good. They do a lot of stuff, a lot of call-in stuff, which I think is brilliant. But anyway, the whole point about it is if it's really severely impacting your life, yeah, it can be a problem. And we've got to get some other strategies for, if you're using porn to cope with some kind of feelings that you can't otherwise cope with. Yeah, that's a problem. If porn is giving you a inaccurate view of how relationships work, or how people engage in sexual behavior, then yeah, we've got to, that can be a problem. But it's not necessarily a problem any more than alcohol. Like drinking alcohol, automatically makes you a alcoholic. No, that's not how it works. There are plenty of people that drink, they go out, they have a good time, they drink on the weekend, they're fine. They're not addicted to it. They're not using it as a coping strategy. They just enjoy a drink. That's it. It doesn't, just because you do something doesn't automatically make it an addiction. And I feel like the Christians go down this thing, absolutely want to make it so if you do something that's against their religion, it's automatically some kind of mental illness. And that is not a thing. That is not a thing. We don't just automatically call something an addiction because you think it isn't good for somebody. Right? Just because someone eats more than you think they should doesn't make them addicted to food. Okay, it just doesn't. We leave that kind of stuff to the professionals. And don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you how to interpret whether something's a problem in your life or it's not. It's just that, sometimes we will identify where something we are doing is causing a problem in our life and we can't seem to break it. We can't seem to make our life better. And that's where you should see a mental health professional, not some guy on the internet who's telling you that you've got a porn addiction.
Stronghold says you are disgusting, but also you deserve this pleasure. Both lies serve the same prison.
I don't think so. I don't think your thoughts will come up in this scenario. I don't think a religious person will think to themselves, you deserve this pleasure. I think it is just that your emotions come up, you feel like crap, you go onto Pornhub and have a wank, and, you feel better. It's a coping mechanism, right? The problem is that, if you can't cope with your feelings any other way, then that is what you will go to because it's the only thing that makes you feel better. And that will become exacerbated if you go, well, I'm terrible for doing this, I'm an awful person. You will feel like shit. And then the only way to cope is to repeat the behavior. So he's sort of wrong here. It's not that your brain is saying, I deserve pleasure or I deserve to be happy. That's not the thought that comes up. The thought that comes up is, I have to do this because I have no other way. It is the only thing that makes me feel better. And you've got to challenge that and say, no, that isn't the only thing that will make you feel. There are other things in your life that are healthy and will make you feel better.
The social media loop. This one is subtle because it does not look like sin, but common cycles include patterns that can be traced back to underlying issues, often influenced by familial or generational struggles.
I'm sorry, how does generational struggles lead to social media addiction? I'm really sorry, I'd like to know this one. Like, is it, my parents didn't have a good job, so I'm on social media? I don't understand this. So I think that social media addiction, I think that, I think that a lot of people label just really being into social media addiction from the onset, just like a lot of these things. Some people do it more than others, and I think that the people that don't like it will say, well, you're addicted to it, you can't stop, kind of thing. And it's just like, well, that isn't how we kind of define what's addictive or not. I think that some people, yes, social media is destructive in their lives, and yeah, they should get help from that. But I don't see what their, familial inheritance have to do with it, or their generational struggles has to do with it. Is it that, their generation struggles with owning a home, so they get on social media? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Is a dopamine loop, engineered by algorithms specifically designed to keep you scrolling. It steals the stillness where God speaks.
Okay, so you want your dopamine to come from God. Like, religion does exactly the same thing, I might point out. When they get people in the church, they play the music and they say, I'll feel the Holy Spirit and do all of this stuff. And, you feel awesome. That's a dopamine hit, my guy. That's a dopamine hit. It sort of has the same function. Okay, so, and just getting a dopamine hit from doing something, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're if you cannot cope with certain feelings or certain issues in your life without that dopamine hit, it may be a problem. But I'm not here to tell you what's a problem in your life, right? Whereas this guy he's sort of like social media. Now, I personally, I'm not a big fan of social media. Like I said, my coping mechanism was isolation and alienation from everybody around me. That's a problem. That also is a problem. But, I don't have anything against social media, just like any of these other things, just like pornography, just like alcohol, just like anything at all. Just like religion, right? It's not automatically bad, but if the only way to cope is through this thing, it can be really bad and addictive. But I'm not here to tell you what's bad for your life and what's good for your life. Who am I to say what's good for your life and bad for your life? You have to decide that yourself. I'm not here to tell you.
Places genuine connection with performed connection. It creates comparison, anxiety, and a hunger for validation that the platform is specifically designed to never fully satisfy. You finish one session craving the next. That craving is the loop. The crime.
Yeah, I don't know that that's accurate for everybody. I don't think that young people really should be in a social media because they haven't really developed who they are yet, much less, sort of share it with the world. It may be a problem. Look, there's a lot of problems around it. But to sort of go, well, it's an addiction if you do it. No.
Loop. For those caught in cycles of offending and returning, this loop is sustained by a lie of identity. The stronghold says, this is who you are. This is all you are. The system says it. Your family says it.
Well, those are thoughts. I don't think the family says that social media is all you are. I'm baffled. And like being on YouTube, Bible Stickman is technically participating in social media. Like he is doing media in a social setting. He does have commentators. I know, I commented on his video. There's a lot of social aspects to YouTube. So are you working for the devil? Maybe? Is Bible Stickman the devil's agent? I don't know. But this is crazy. We don't just look at something and go, oh, well, if you go back to it, it's addicting. No, that's not how we evaluate that kind of stuff. No.
Your neighborhood says it, and every return to the cycle feels like evidence that the verdict is final. But Galatians 3:13.
Look, I'm in favor. If you need a break from social media, go to it. Go to it, my friends. Like, seriously, you need a break from that? That's cool. The important thing is not to go, oh, well, I've got to break this. Is this behavior good for me or not? Is it what I want or not? Is it causing any other, disturbances in my life, or am I unable to do things that I want to do in my life but can't do because of this behavior? It isn't just, oh, well, I spend a lot of time on social media, I'm addicted. That isn't how we actually interpret these things. So it's just well, if you do too much social media, you bad person. No. I'm sorry, but no. That isn't how it works.
It says, Christ redeemed us from the curse, every curse, including the curse of a criminal record that the world treats as permanent. The poverty loop. Generational financial bondage is one of the most devastating loops because it shapes a person's entire framework of what is possible. The cycle keeps...
Here is Mark Reed touching dirt. It's very rare, but I do go out and touch dirt occasionally. Look, poverty is complex, and a lot of it is to do with education. A lot of it is to do with your socioeconomic status of where you come into the world, where you live, opportunities that have been afforded to you. A lot of it has nothing to do with your psychological state. Nothing to do with it. This whole idea that, I really feel for sort of Generation Z coming up, because they basically have been promised that if you work hard and you do your job, you get a good education, do your job, work hard, you'll be able to afford a house and you'll make it and you'll be, really, really well off. And that isn't necessarily true. That's a lie. Because we get some, let's be fair, Nepo babies out there who don't work hard at university, they don't get a good education, they don't work hard, and they still have a lifestyle that the rest of us would just dream of. So that isn't a thing. And poverty is, a lot of it is, when you get into it, it's really hard to get out, and nothing about that is to do with your mindset. So when you go to uni, you get a massive debt, you studied something that doesn't provide good job opportunities, you can't get a job, that has nothing to do with your mindset. Those are external factors. So I think sort of just going, oh, but you just have to have a better mindset. No. But what would help is talking to people who know what to do, like finance people. And the feelings associated with poverty, don't get me wrong, you can go to a psychologist for that. But if you are struggling, I'm not sure a psychologist can get you out of that problem. That's not what they're for. Okay, so it's important to realize that poverty may not be somebody's fault. It might not be a mindset. It has nothing to do with their psychology a lot of the time. This whole idea of change your mindset and win big, it's not necessarily the case. Look, I'm not saying that a good mindset isn't helpful for getting you out of poverty. I just don't think it happens automatically. I think there's a lot of other factors that go into why people are in poverty. Somebody in Central Africa may have a fantastic mindset. They're still going to be in poverty. I'm really sorry, but it has nothing to do with their mindset.
Keeps repeating itself as you go further down the bloodline. And all of this negative activity going down through generations started because no one knew how to break the original Curse 9.
Yeah, and I gotcha, Megan Fox. Absolutely. Millennials were fed that lie, learned the hard way, and told Gen Z the truth. Now, I'm not a millennial or Gen Z. I'm Generation X, right, which occupies the sort of space in between the boomers and the millennials, or Generation Y. So Generation X was a weird generation. We were largely just left to our devices to figure stuff out. There's sort of a meh kind of attitude. I think that Generation X are the generation that started to get an idea of what was happening and got overwhelmed. Now, it's important to realize that during the 90s, which was the heyday of my generation, that was Generation X's time, there was something called the grunge movement. And that grunge movement wasn't just about bands. It was about not buying corporate things, getting a flannelette shirt as cheaply as possible, not selling out, as it were, getting ripped old jeans from an op shop or a charity store to not spend money and give it to these massive corporations, to really just try to walk lightly through the finance kind of stuff. Like just not give a shit about how you look, not get a haircut, not do any of this stuff. Just, give a big fuck you to the corporations. Now, in my opinion, and what I saw from being in that generation is really fascinating, they kind of bundled up our little revolution and sold it back to us. So from going down to the op shop and grabbing, a secondhand flannelette shirt that was, $2 or whatever, people were going out and buying designer flannelette shirts that cost like $100. And what was fascinating to me was that grunge was the rebellion against marketing, corporate influence, and the capitalist system. And they sold our rebellion back to us. Wild. Spielcab, you're on the verge. You're in the intersection between them, I believe. That's like really on the border, but I think you're Generation X. I'll just look it up. I know that they've got... I mean, people disagree when it starts and when it ends. Yeah, so it's generally defined as 1965. So you're in Generation X. And Generation X, so millennials and Generation Z, they leverage against it. Baby boomers, they go, yeah, they're kind of responsible. Not entirely, but I get their point. They'll sort of go, well, Generation X, they were just apathetic. They didn't care. I can't disagree. I can't disagree. It wasn't like we didn't care. It's just, I think that apathy came later after feeling like there was nothing we could do. Feeling like we were completely impotent against this system kind of thing. 1972. Yeah. So your Generation X, generally, like some people put it at different locations, generally Generation X. I don't think Generation X started out apathetic. I think they became that way after trying and failing.
The poverty loop is sustained by scarcity thinking, the deep-rooted belief that there is never enough and never will be. That is a stronghold. And Philippians 4:19 says, God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. There's plenty of people that believe in God and are still very poor and need things like housing and water and food. Where was God on that one? There are homeless people that believe in God.
The contrast between that promise and the poverty mindset is where the stronghold must be challenged. The rage loop. Anger explodes, causes destruction, produces shame, creates a fragile calm, then erupts again. Ephesians 4:26 says, Be angry and do not sin, but let the sun not go down on your wrath.
So anger kind of is, and I sort of have talked about anger in the past, and it may be that I've gotten it slightly wrong because I have talked to people familiar with psychology that sort of anger can lead into fear into anger, but anger is sort of one of those emotions that it isn't necessarily bad by itself. It's just what we do with it bad. So he's not entirely wrong here, but he's not entirely right. It's not the sort of stronghold, but we can only address it at the thoughts kind of thing. We can't stop. Like, have you ever tried to stop yourself from being angry? It doesn't really work. We've got to address the thoughts that are causing it. And sometimes it's appropriate to be angry. If you hear about what the Catholic Church priests did to children, anger is appropriate. It's an appropriate emotion to feel. And you have to acknowledge it. That makes me fucking enraged. Absolutely. Like, my question would be, if you don't hear about all of the stuff in, like, the Epstein files, if you're not angry, I don't know what to say to you. It should make you angry. And it's okay to feel that. You know, it's your behaviors that are the problem if you go and do destructive behaviors. That's right. But it's not, you know, anger leads to the dark side. Well,
Rage loop is almost always attached to deep, unprocessed pain, hurt that was never named, grief.
no, not entirely. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It can also be attached to fear. It can also be attached to some sort of trauma. It doesn't have to be attached to that. And it can just be that anger is generated when someone violates your boundaries. So that can cause anger to rise. So um, it often is attached to fear. Often.
That was never mourned, wounds that were never healed. The rage is not the root, it is the pressure release valve of something deeper, and addressing only the explosion while leaving the pressure untouched is why the loop continues. The generational loop, perhaps the most
Yeah, I mean, I don't like sort of pressure as a metaphor for this kind of thing. I think that he's now sort of trying to use the addiction cycles to apply it to, say, anger and destructive outbursts, and I don't think it just swaps over so easily. I don't think that um, like there's so much of a shame cycle in anger, right? Don't get me wrong, there probably is. There definitely is. That, you know, there's something that you go, oh, I wish I wouldn't do that, I'm terrible. Sure, it leads into that a bit, but I don't think it is necessarily that loop so much. So I think he's just put anger into this bucket where it's a sort of a different thing. You know, it may not be CBT and the breaking cycles and using thoughts to break cycles, challenging thoughts, that may help with anger so much. It may be something like schema therapy, which is actually better, that sort of tries to identify where that is coming from and what part of your personality is actually generating that.
encompassing. The same destructive patterns your parents battled keep surfacing in your life. Anger erupts without warning. Financial chaos follows you everywhere. Addiction
Wow, that's a picture. Oh, I don't think I can open my mouth that far. I don't think I can open my mouth that far. That is a... We're twins.
whispers the same lies your grandparents heard. Exodus 25 acknowledges that iniquity can visit children to the third and fourth generation, but Ezekiel 18:20
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the Bible's contradictory. What's your point? And isn't Exodus like 25? I know Exodus 21 is how to treat your slaves, you know. I don't know about Exodus 25. I wouldn't be going to the Bible because that, what, offerings for the tabernacle? Make a table of a... Look, this is Exodus 25, right? Make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long and a cubit wide and a cubit and a half high. Overlay it with pure gold and make gold moldings around it. Also make it around a rim of hard's breadth of... Put gold molding on the... What are you, Trump? You want gold on everything? What's the deal? He did say 25, didn't he? Yeah, 25. Uh, where does it say that in 25? Okay, I'm really confused. I cannot see that. Are you sure you've got the right passage? What? And you know, why third or fourth generation? I mean, it can. Oh, it's 25. Okay, Exodus 25. Okay, well, you've lied to me, and you've lied in your subtitles. It's Exodus 25. So you shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents to the third or fourth generation of those who hate me. This isn't saying that sort of generational trauma can follow you down. This is saying God's going to punish you to the third or fourth generation if you don't believe in me. Like, this isn't, hey, inequity goes down the generations, so, you know, it can follow your family. No, this is a exhortation to believe in God, or else. Because I'm jealous. Maybe it's God that needs therapy. Maybe God needs to do some CBT to work on his jealousy. And this is what I mean by Christians taking modern psychology and retroactively fitting it to the Bible. This doesn't fit here, because this is talking about God's jealousy and him punishing people down the generations. I would say that generational inequities can follow down way more than that. Way more than that. You know, you have one people's enslaved by another people's, and that will follow them down all the way to modern times. Like, it's not just 3 or 4 generations, you're going to be unhappy. No, that is not a thing.
18:20 declares that the son shall not bear the iniquity of the father. Both are true. The pattern can...
Both are true. How can both be true? It says that, I mean, I know it does say the father shall not bear the sin, the son shall not bear the sins of the father, but God's making it clear, if he's jealous, oh yeah, they will. Oh yeah, they will.
Travel, and the pattern can stop with you. Here is what nobody tells you, and why so many people feel like failures after years of genuine effort. Willpower engages the...
It's okay. I want to share this. Because this is just ridiculous, right? You should not bow down to them or worship them. So you should not make in yourself an image in the form of anything, including a bull, apparently, in heaven, above or on the earth or beneath its waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. That's clearly saying that people that love God and don't make idols and worship that God, 1,000 generations will be shown love. But if you worship a bull, I'm going to punish your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren's grandchildren. You know, like, it's just ridiculous to say, oh, well, that means that generational trauma can follow you. No, that's not what that passage means.
Natural mind, but the loop was built in the spiritual realm, and demons don't respond to shows of physical strength. They're not impressed by intellect, by what we think we know.
Okay, so demons don't exist. We're not talking about demons. These loops, these demonic loops, are cycles in psychology. He's just trying to make it a spiritual thing. Our intellect is the only thing that can really address it. Like I said, you can't stop emotions. Our behaviors, we have way less control over than we think they do, and they're influenced by our thoughts. But our thoughts, we can. So it's not a spiritual thing. It is the intellect that does it. And it takes a lot of work to break those chains of thought that come to you, because when we start thinking something and we do it over and over, our neurons sort of make a pathway that will go down that train of thought. We know this, okay? This is how neuroadaptation works. It will just keep firing down that thing, but it can be changed. Now, I'm not saying it's not difficult. It's incredibly difficult, requires a lot of work, especially those core beliefs, those beliefs that are sort of part of who we are. It's very, very challenging, incredibly challenging. But it is possible, and it's not done with anything spiritual. And I know because I've changed how I think and really challenged those distorted thoughts. And I've done it without any belief in God or Jesus visiting me or the Holy Spirit coming or anything like that. Okay, that's how I know, because I didn't call on God or do any of this stuff.
Or by emotion. Human effort cannot remove or silence them. So we use God's weapons, which are the powerful effects of truth and divine authority. This is not a message designed to make you feel powerless. It is a message designed to redirect your power correctly. You have been fighting with the wrong.
Well, at least, I will say this one to him. His attitude is better than one of the religious AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, when they're filled with religion, saying you've got to accept your helplessness, and just give over your power because you can't do anything about it, is a terrible message. A terrible message. I don't like them.
Weapons. You have been bringing human determination against a spiritual structure, and 2 Corinthians 10:4 says plainly that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, they are mighty through God. What breaks the loop is not more effort, it is the right authority applied in the right place against the right target. How to break out and come forth. 5 steps. Step 1. Identification. Name the stronghold at its root. Don't just pray generically. Get specific. What actual patterns have you noticed cycling?
So I'm unfamiliar with this whole idea of stronghold. He hasn't made it clear whether that is the thought, the feeling, or the behavior. He's kind of muddled through sort of applying it to all of them. So it's important to identify the behavior that's causing problems, right? Absolutely. That one will be the easy one. Because whenever we're having troubles, we're like, well, I know I'm screwing up by doing this thing, but I can't seem to stop. I keep doing this and I don't want to do it anymore. That's the easy part, because we know what that will be. We've also got to identify sort of the feelings and the thoughts that are leading to that reaction. Right? We've got to identify them. So is that the stronghold? I don't know. He doesn't make it clear. But this is what happens when you're trying to retroactively fit your religion into some sort of science. You're just using these wild metaphors and they change and they're not solid and there are no solid ideas in here.
A written list. The enemy operates through vagueness and secrecy. Bringing patterns into the light begins to break their power. Ask the Holy Spirit to show you not just the behavior, but the belief underneath it. What lie is feeding this loop? What does this habit promise you that only God can deliver?
Okay, so I feel like he just wants to transfer any addiction or any problematic behavior onto a sort of religious fervor. So if you have an addiction, just be addicted to God instead. Almost like a transference kind of thing. It's really worrying, because there can be people who, really dangerous fundamentalist people who are in the religion too hard, who think that their religion should control the world or people should believe what they believe. There are people in religions who are very unhealthy and will do horrible, catastrophic things. Now, I'm not saying all religion is bad, just it can be dangerous as well. So just sort of transferring from, your coping strategy of substance, for instance, to a coping strategy of God is not necessarily, number one, it doesn't solve the problem, right? Whatever feelings are coming up that you can't cope with, it doesn't solve that problem. All it does is give you another coping strategy, which may be better, but it may not be either.
Name it, write it, speak it out loud. Light is the enemy's enemy, and your honest naming of the loop in God's presence is the first crack in the wall. Step 2.
Okay, so I suggest writing things down, especially if you're doing cognitive behavioral therapy. You will write a like a ton if you're doing cognitive behavioral therapy. What you're doing is writing down a thought that's come up, then writing down sort of the feelings that the thought will cause, and then you're writing down the outcome of behaviors that will eventuate from that thought and that feeling. And then you're writing down an alternative thought, like saying, hey, this thought's distorted. What is actually accurate? Use critical thinking to sort of say, what is the actuality behind this? Is this thought accurate, or is there another thing? Can I challenge it with something else? Like, imagine you have anxiety, for instance, like incredible social anxiety, that when you muck up and drop something, or something happens, or you break wind in public, who knows, one of these things, you're just petrified and totally scared that you're going to do something embarrassing. You can challenge that thought that, hey, most people don't care what you're doing in public. Most people don't care about you. They're not watching you. They don't really care. Nobody really cares about you in public. You're just another person. Like, that's the challenge that you have, that everybody is watching for you to slip up. That's a distorted thought. Nobody's watching for you. They're just going about their day. They may glance at you or think stuff about you, because obviously you're a person in the world. But if you drop your coffee at a train station, no one's going to remember in like 5 seconds. Some person may look over, or they may go, oh, or they may go, he, and then they don't care. They will just forget about it. They won't care. Like, people don't pay attention to other people as much as somebody with social anxiety thinks. People just move on with their lives. They don't give a crap about you. Generally. Right? So it's that kind of challenge. And basically you're plotting out how each of those different thoughts could influence your emotion and have behaviors. So, from one side, everyone's going to laugh at me and remember and, talk badly about me if I drop my coffee, right? What that leads to, incredible amount of anxiety, fear, an impulse to get away, all of these different things. And then what behaviors will that lead to? You'll be afraid to engage with people. You'll isolate yourself. You won't come out in public. You will draw away from people and put up barriers so they don't get to know you, because they're gonna, all of this stuff comes alongside there. But what will people not really caring lead to? Well, it won't bring up that emotions. It'll probably bring up a bit of frustration. I mean, I would be frustrated if I dropped my coffee at a train station. Yeah. It'll bring annoyance, maybe some of these other feelings. But what it will lead to is just being able to get on with my life and go do my job and not be so stressed at work. And so you're plotting out these things, and it requires so much writing. I found it totally worth. Okay, I found it worth it. I know people that have said, hey, it doesn't work for me. Not very good for me. Totally cool. That's fine. Like, totally get it. Different people and different problems need different solutions. That's okay. But just sort of me saying, hey, God, make me not nervous. That does not help. It does not help. Okay. Left-handed Jedi for $2. Repeat after me. It's all Mark's fault. Yeah, look, blame it on me if you want. It's all my fault. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, it's always my fault. You got me. You got me.
Renunciation. Verbally break each pattern you identified. Be specific. Name the pattern. Declare it broken by the blood of Christ. This isn't symbolic language. It's spiritual reality. James 4:7.
Yeah, this does not work. This does not work, because you're basically saying, like in that example, you're basically saying, oh, well, I dropped my coffee. I'm starting to feel afraid. I renounce you in the name of Christ. How does that address the thought that comes up, right? How does that address the feelings that come up? Well, it doesn't, right? You're just suppressing at that point. That's all you're doing. We want to change our thoughts so they really push back on these thoughts that come up. Because you drop your coffee, everyone's going to be going, oh God, that's so embarrassing. But we can push back on it and go, yeah, it happens, people are going to forget about it. Instead of, I'm never going to live this down kind of thing. And just saying, I renounce you in the name of Christ doesn't address that. So when that intrusive thought comes up again, oh, I'm so embarrassed, I'm never going to live that down. If all you're doing is saying, I renounce you in the name of Christ, the emotions are still going to come up, and you're essentially trading one for the other. It's not a good way to address it.
And says, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. The sequence matters. Submission to God comes first. Resistance to the enemy flows from that submission. You are not fighting from a position of weakness trying to climb to freedom. You are fighting from a position of covenant authority in Christ. Galatians 3:13 says Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law, every curse, by becoming a curse for us. That is past tense. The legal work is done.
I hate this idea that the legal work is done and that I can just call out to Jesus and that'll solve all my problems. It really doesn't. There's a ton of people with problems that are religious. It doesn't solve your problems.
Declaration is applying what Christ already accomplished. Step 3. Renewal. Rewire the mind with the Word. Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is not a one-time prayer. It is a daily discipline. Neural pathways built.
And don't forget to blow a horn while doing so. That's important. Blow that horn. You have to. That is the only way for a healthy coping mechanism is look, music can be a healthy coping mechanism. Absolutely. If you're feeling down, you go and you blow your horn and, you feel better. Sure, that can be a healthy coping mechanism, absolutely. But this whole idea of banishing stuff in the name of the Lord and banishing the enemy, your thoughts are not your enemy. Right? There are no enemies in your mental health. There's no enemy. It's not what was that Ren song? Hi Ren. It sort of had some amazing stuff after it. Like, it's not David versus Goliath. It's a pendulum swinging backwards and forwards between the dark and the light. And I've always loved that metaphor because it's kind of, the more you fight and see it as a battle against this stuff, the more it gets sort of stronger and fights you, right? Like, this is more like a dance. It's more like you've got to flow with it and go, okay, where can it's more like shifting a stream than damming it, right? Like creating a channel to channel it somewhere healthy rather than damming it up completely, right? Because our emotions will always come out. So the important thing is to challenge those thoughts, leads to different emotions, and channeling that to a healthy place, not this fight that he's talking about, this conflict. But it's always with okay, I won't say that. Some Christians are fine. Some Christians are, everything is fighting, everything is war, everything is conflict. And I'm here to tell you, being in conflict with your own mind is not a good situation to be in. Like, so please don't look at it as a war, as a battle against you. Unless you're writing poetry, I don't think that's the way to go. I really don't think so.
Through abuse and addiction must be rewired through the Word of God. Prayer.
Nope. Incorrect. Incorrect. Because I have known plenty of people who have been addicted to substance or had other mental health problems, and they have rewired their brain without a God or anything like it by doing therapy. So, you are wrong. You are just downright wrong. But it is, I don't know, the cynic in me gets pretty sort of annoyed that he seems to be, and I'll say seems to be because I don't know his intentions, but he seems to be leveraging mental health issues into conversion. And it's a problem. Because we want to know that whatever solution you're offering, has, testably works, has clinical trials to show this has better outcomes. Between secular therapies and religion, one of them has clinically proven success rates. And spoiler, it's not religion. Okay, I'm not saying that religion can't be helpful. I'm not saying that your pastor can't help or somebody, who is religious can help. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that religion and this kind of, replace your addiction with God has not been clinically tested to work. And secular therapies, CBT, ACT, schema therapy, group therapy, they have been tested to work.
An intentional thought replacement. Even after demons are cast out, many...
Okay, so it's just thought replacement. That is CBT. That is 100% CBT. Okay, you're not casting out demons. And I will take this thing just to reiterate. And I just wanted to grab this. Now, I don't have access to the full literature. I have read this when I was in university. I have read the full study, but I don't have access to it now that I'm out of university. But I'll just sort of mention the abstract that in a cross-sectional analysis, we find that among young adults, right? So this is among young adults, sort of, 18 to 25, I believe they investigated. Believing in demons is one of the strongest negative predictors of mental health. That means that they found that statistically, people who believed in demons had a negative correlation, a correlation to negative mental health outcomes, bad mental health outcomes, right? More importantly, using 3 waves of national study of youth, religion and a cross-lagged structural equation model, we find belief in demons can lead to lowered mental health in later waves, but low mental health, and this is important, okay, this is important, low mental health does not lead to greater belief in demons. Okay, so what they did with their cross-sectional study is they studied also people that had low mental health to see if it was causal in both directions. So what they wanted to see, so think about it like this. Correlation is not causation, right? So basically, if you have a bunch of people who have low mental health and also believe in demons, right? It could be that like low mental health and not thinking correctly can, or thinking abstractly about demons, it leads to, like, you can be an atheist, you get really depressed and stuff, and maybe that will lead to a belief in demons, okay? But that's not what they found. They did not find people with low mental health would believe in demons. What they found is that people that believed in demons would lead to low mental health. Now, this is in young people, right? So they're basically saying, hey, in young people, this has a severe impact on them. In fact, when predicting changes in mental health from wave 2 to wave 3, the negative effect size of belief in demons on mental health is larger in magnitude than all other religious-related predictors, and that includes positive predictors. So people have often said and sort of made these claims, and there is something to it. Religious people are happier, right? Like, they generally are happier than non-religious people. And there is something to that, because they do report being happier. Now, there may be conflating things, like there might be a stigma about people in religion saying that they have mental health problems. There may be people in religion framing mental health problems as a spiritual problem rather than a mental health problem. But all of that aside, even if, people in religion are generally happier, on young people, it can be absolutely traumatic to believe in demons. I mean, think about it. If you grow up through your childhood and into your 20s, when you're starting to find yourself, develop as an adult, find what you like, what you don't like, and you think that some otherworld entity is trying to control you to push you towards sins or evil or whatever, it can have a profound effect on somebody. It can be incredibly destructive. Now, I'm not saying it always is. I'm not saying all religion bad, but That is what we found. That is what we found. So yeah, and it's not the opposite way round. It's not that someone gets low in mental health and it leads to belief in demons. That is not happening. It is a causal relationship. So if you do get somebody saying, hey, atheists have worse mental health, not necessarily, no.
Many believers fall back into bondage because they don't renew their minds. The loop built a road in your thinking, a well-worn path your mind defaults to under stress, under loneliness, under temptation. Renewal of the mind is the process of building a new road. Every day you choose the word over the old pattern.
Yeah, I'm not sure that sort of renewing the mind through God's word is particularly helpful here. I'm not 100% sure of that. I mean, it depends on the problem. You could possibly use it as a way to challenge thought, to say, hey, I'm going to stop doing this. But I don't, renewal of the mind, I'm not 100% sure of that.
You are laying new asphalt. Every day you choose worship over the scroll, truth over the lie, God's presence over the substance. You are weakening.
Well, like I said, feelings are not truth apt. They don't tell you if something's true or not, right? It's the thoughts that are truth apt, that are true or not. You may feel like somebody has insulted you and you feel angry, right? That anger is not truth apt. It doesn't relate to any kind of truth or not. It may be true, the thought, like you go, oh, they're insulting me. That may be true or not, but the feeling isn't truth apt at all. Early addiction recovery is a desperate time. I don't blame. No, look, noise ending. I don't blame anybody that latches onto anything. I said earlier, you may not have been here, but I said earlier that these maladaptive coping mechanisms like addiction, isolation, all of these maladaptive coping mechanisms, they're not necessarily bad, because they may have gotten you through a time that you couldn't have coped with otherwise, right? So we've got to stop thinking of them as inherently bad and start reframing them as a coping strategy that may not be required anymore, or unhealthy coping strategies, right? We don't blame people for that. People are generally doing the best they can do. We have to sort of frame it as they latched onto something to get them through a hard time, even if that's alcoholism. And I really get, and I really empathize with you if you've been through a really bad time, either as a consequence of alcoholism or someone who has had alcoholism, been horrible to you. I really feel for you, but we've got to stop framing this as they're a bad person, because that does not help. That coping, like if someone loses their wife, their job, their kid, they lose their entire world and they turn to alcohol, it may be the only coping mechanism that kept them alive. That being said, it is something that we have to address and find some healthy coping mechanisms that they can use instead of that, because at the end of the day, it's destructive. Right. I got you. I got your noise ending. Not a problem.
The old road and strengthening the new one. This takes time. It takes consistency, but it works because the whole...
And it takes work. And in the case of CBT, it takes a lot of pens and writing as you write this stuff down. The reason why we write stuff down, and we don't just type it up, we actually write it. There's something about writing which reinforces that. So it's all just getting your memory to go over it again and again and again. And you, like, by the time you're finished CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, you will have a stack of papers with all of this written on it. It requires work.
Holy Spirit is doing it with you, not watching you attempt it alone. Step 4. Prayer and fasting, the deep warfare. Jesus said in Matthew 17:21 that
How is fasting going to help you overcome your drug addiction? Exactly. Can you please point to that? Because I'm a bit unfamiliar with that particular therapy of fasting. Look, fasting's got some good benefits, right? Like there is something for short-term fasting, okay? Short-term fasting. But I'm not sure what he's talking about with fasting. It may be for a longer term, and that can be really bad for your ability to make cognitive choices. How long should a Christian fast for? Jesus fasted for 40 days. Ugh. Fast commonly lasts for one meal, 24 hours, 3 days, or extended periods like 21 or 40 days. Okay, before doing any fast, do not listen to some guy on YouTube or some pastor in a church. See a medical professional. Because yes, fasting can be good in short-term bursts. It can be good for your body. But it is not just a cure-all for everything. And I don't see how it can help you with an addictive behavioral problem. I'm not saying it can't. I'm just saying I don't see how, and I don't see why fasting would be required.
Signs only come out through prayer and fasting. Not every loop breaks through declaration alone. Some loops have deep roots, long histories, and layers of generational soil around them. Freedom comes through spiritual warfare. There are demonic influences attached to traumas.
Okay, I've done a lot of therapy. I have never once fasted during it, or prayed, obviously. But I just feel like this might be a problem if you are fasting, to even 3 days. I think sort of 24 hours isn't that bad, but I think that like alternative day fasting kind of thing, it may be okay and it may be good for your body, like it may have some benefits there. But any longer, I have severe doubts. And look, I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't claim to be. I wouldn't claim to have medical knowledge on this, but I would not take advice from a religious YouTuber on using fasting and prayer to solve mental health issues. If I had mental health issues, I would see a mental health care professional. Okay? It's not like, don't listen to me, don't listen to them, don't listen to your mate down the pub who told you that, Vegemite could cure your case of the blues. Go to someone who has been trained, is knowledgeable, and has a background in treating these problems. This is nonsense. This is me right now. This is my trauma at what this person is saying. I'm joking, of course. I'm joking, of course.
And they need to be broken in the spirit realm. Affirmations and healthy habits are great, but there is a level of breakthrough that only comes when you humble yourself before God and consecrate your life through fasting and prayer.
Yeah, I mean, affirmations can be helpful, sure, but I don't think they take if like you're going, oh, I will be rich or something like this. I think there's a lot of problems with them. If you're pushing back on your thoughts, like what thoughts come up about the reality around you, that's one thing. If you're simply trying to lie to yourself to convince yourself that something is untrue, I don't think that's particularly healthy. I really don't think so. Oh, there's 3 marks now. That's awesome.
Isaiah 58:6 says God has chosen the fast to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke. Fasting is not starvation, it is strategic hunger, choosing to be more hungry for God than for the thing that has held you.
Okay, so in my state, there is a problem with, or what I think is a problem with, private schools and religion-run schools putting in pastors instead of psychologists as their counselors, right? They may have an undergraduate certificate in counseling, but there's a problem, and I'll give you an example of one of the problems, right? And you'll really understand why I have an issue with this. In one of the schools, a young girl went to the counselor because they had an eating disorder, so anorexia nervosa, right? Which is basically a distorted image of reality where they think the patient thinks that they are too fat and they're overweight, and they'll stop eating. And the pastor or this counselor who was religious turned to her and said, "It's okay, you're hungry for God." Instead of addressing why she was feeling the way she was feeling, what thoughts were coming up that may be distorted and challenging them, or better yet, get her help from a psychologist or psychiatrist with a speciality in eating disorders, that would be ideal. They instead basically said, "It's fine, and you're hungry for, just turn to God." That guy was fired, as he should have been. And this is sort of the problem that I'm pointing out. He's providing these religious-based solutions with no empirical data behind them, no clinical proof that they work, no testing to see if they actually have an effect, and may be really detrimental to the person. Imagine somebody with anorexia watching this, right? Do fasting. So what's the loop cycle there? It's basically a distorted image that I am overweight, I don't look thin enough, I'm, yeah, the shame's in there, yeah. And, the feelings that come up are inadequacy, a feeling of hopelessness, shame is coming up, all of that stuff is coming up, and their behavior is to not eat. And this guy, this absolute quack, is saying try fasting. Is it just me, or is that a fucking problem? And that's why I was mad. Because that is the worst thing to tell somebody with an eating disorder. It's the worst thing. I cannot imagine how they would feel that, oh, well, God's unhappy when you do it. Turn to God and pray to God. Will not solve anything. Anything. Instead, we should be directing them towards a licensed therapist who has a speciality in eating disorders, because it's a fucking problem. It is deep-seated. It can be life-threatening, and some idiot like me on the internet should not be giving medical advice to what you should do. And it certainly shouldn't be fasting.
And when you fast and pray with that specific intention, you are engaging the deepest level of spiritual authority available to a believer. Step 5, community
and look, it may not be his fault. He might think he's helping. But what I get cynical about is for all of these problems in people's life, they just basically say, turn to God and it'll fix the problem. You'll be happy, you'll do this. And they get money out of it. They tithe. They pay money. They hand over their percentage of their income to the people doing this, but it never actually gets at the problem. Never gets at the problem.
and accountability do not escape alone. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. The demonic loop thrives in isolation. Shame drives you underground, and underground the loop feeds. Having a support system is vital in breaking free from demonic cycles.
Okay, well, I mean, apart from the demonic cycles, I don't think that's not bad advice. Have a support system. Talk to people. If you're at a good place, don't stigmatize mental health. If someone says, "Hey, I'm doing this thing, I hate it," look, have a conversation. Say, "Look, nothing wrong with you. All kinds of people have mental health issues. Let's not stigmatize it. Let's be open and understanding about it." I mean, you wouldn't go, "Oh, well, you broke your leg. What kind of idiot needs to go to a doctor?" Why are we doing it with mental health? Why are we doing it with mental health? I don't understand. Yeah, turn to a healthy food plan. Yes, but for something like anorexia nervosa, just sort of saying, well, here's a food plan won't help them. We've got to, because the disorder of not eating, the anorexia, is not the problem. You've got to address the problem of why they don't think they're beautiful or thin enough, or it's something underlying. And that's what you've got to get at. Just sort of changing the behavior isn't going to solve the problem. And so with the same thoughts and the same emotions, they will lead to the same behavior again and again. That's the whole point with addictive behavior. Like if you just change the behavior, it will lead to relapse. That is all what it's about. Because the behavior will follow on from the thoughts and the feelings.
Seeking accountability from fellow believers can provide encouragement and help us stay on track. You need at least one person who knows the real.
Yeah, I don't think that may be helpful. You know, I mean, they like to think that fellow believers will be understanding and stuff. There's still that shame that they put on them, right? Like, it's interesting at one point that it's this shame that's causing you to spiral. I don't disagree with addiction, with some behaviors. Shame does contribute to that cycle, right? Not totally agree, but then he's saying, well, you know, have other people hold you accountable. Well, that's just adding to more shame, and this time external shaming. That may not be helpful. What is helpful is connecting with people in the same situation. And that's why group therapy is really good, because you're basically connecting with people who have the same problem. You don't feel alone. You feel like there are other people going through what you're going through. But apart from, you know, if you want to do that, that's great. But you shouldn't feel like you have to share this stuff with anybody. Right? Just like you don't have to tell your fellow people if you have a hemorrhoid or something. You know, your medical information should be up to you to share as you wish. And sometimes, and what annoys me about Dr. Phil is the way that he sort of parades it around. That might not be helpful. All right? Having a ton of people know about it and judging you may not be helpful at all. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. No, I get you. I get you. But I have heard about, and this is because people I know have been in a bad place and been in a mental institution, and I've known people who have worked in that area. Some girls have been so malnourished through that disorder that they have had to give them nutrients via bloodstream or via like force feeding them, basically, which is horrific. And it's terrible, but they literally have been on the verge of dying. Anorexia nervosa is no fucking joke. It's not a joke. It's not funny. There's nothing about it that is funny or you know, oh, she's this. No, nothing fucking funny about it at all. A lot of people almost die, and some girls die. So let's not just tell them, hey, just eat, you know, you're hungry for God. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Name of your loop, not the polished version, the real one. Someone who will pray with you, check on you, and refuse to let shame send you back underground. James 5:16 says, confess your sins to one another.
I mean, I don't disagree with his advice on this. If you have friends that can support you and understand, it can be very beneficial. Having a support system, yeah, really beneficial. Like, it's not bad advice. Not everything he says is bad advice, just this whole demons and stuff. No.
and pray for one another so that you may be healed. Confession to community is not an optional decoration on the journey to freedom. It is part of the mechanism of healing. Here's what I need you to understand about every loop the enemy engineers in your life. Every single one of them has the same ultimate goal.
Well, I mean, it can be helpful. It sometimes is not. Like it, you know, I think with a mental health journey, you can't just say, hey, this isn't optional. It's a different people have different things that they do on their journey that I might not do on my journey. It all depends on the person and it all depends on the problem. And there's so many factors. I wouldn't say, oh, this is what you should do. No, I can tell you what I've done and what worked for me. That is not a declaration that that is what to do. And that's why I keep saying see a mental health professional, because what works for me and address my problems may not work for you or address your problems. So I wouldn't say, hey, you've got to confess to people what you've done. If you relapse or if you make the same mistake, you've got to confess. That might not be helpful to them. And it may be that, hey, you should go to your therapist and have it as your therapist who has a legal obligation to not tell people. They're not allowed to. They can't betray your confidence as being the person you can confide in because A, they're legally not allowed to say what you've told them. And B, they don't know you. They're not in your life. They're not going to look at you any differently. You're a patient. So, you know, if you have therapy and decide they're not for you, or if you get self-actualized and you don't need them anymore, they're not going to have a social life with you afterwards. They're not going to interact with you afterwards. That's why you need someone neutral for therapy, because they're not influenced or they won't affect you at all in life's future. You might see them again and you'll say hello, but that's about it. And there's something comforting and something very, it's essential to the therapy process that that person is not like a friend or a family member or somebody in your life, that they are an outside person, nothing to do with you.
Not just to keep you sinning, to keep you from knowing who you are. You are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses cheering you on. You have a race marked out for you, real people to love, real kingdom work to do.
Okay. I don't know whether this guy is in a different church than the ones I've seen, but usually when someone has problems in a church, especially mental health problems, not everyone is cheering them on, as you say it. I don't know if that's the reaction that people get, because like any social environment, generally, and I'm saying generally, it's mixed. Some people go, yeah, I feel empathy with that person, can relate to them, well done. Some people go, oh, their sin has caused them to do all of this stuff, Some of them probably are going, you know what, I hate that arsehole and I hope he falls down again. I think it's a mixed bag. And I think that's why just having a therapist who is obliged to keep it to themselves is a good idea. I'm not saying everything about religion is bad, but if you think you're having mental health problems in a church and everyone is cheering you on, I don't know about that one, Chief. Especially if it's, pornography or maybe you're a trans person. Yeah, I don't think anyone in most churches are cheering you on in that case.
Real joy to carry. The loop was not designed to simply make your life difficult. It was designed to make you forget that you have a destiny, that your life has a specific shape God intended, that you were not created for the cycle. You were created to break it, not just for yourself, for the generation behind you that is watching whether it is possible. Johnny.
Yeah, I'm not sure you should focus on the generation behind you as some sort of obligation, because when people are going through mental health issues, the last thing we want to load onto them is more responsibility, especially to a generation that's not here yet. Like, give the guy a break. He's trying to sort out his life. He can't be thinking about, oh, but my grandchildren will be stuck in the same cycle. That's not a good idea. It's not. Yeah, well, So need, it's very, very, very helpful and constructive to have. So absolutely, I'm not disagreeing with you, and it's not exclusive to Christianity, absolutely. But having said that, I don't think there is an onus to telling everybody about your mental health journey. I think that part of your mental health journey should be have control over who you tell, who you articulate it to, and how much you tell them, right? Like, you should have power over that. So I'm happy to sort of tell you about my mental health journey when I'm younger. When I was the age that I was going through it, I probably wouldn't be happy to share with people what I was going through. And that's okay. That's totally okay. If you did, that's okay too. If you're okay to share it, that's totally cool. And I want people, I would really love if people would hear about somebody going through a mental health issue and go, I empathize, I want to help, there's no stigma, you're accepted. All of these good things of, hey, if I can help, let me know. If you want to talk, let me, I really would like that reaction. But we can't, we don't have any control over what other people will do, right? We don't have control over whether they say, oh, that sounds bad, and I hope your journey goes well, or, oh wow, you just need to toughen the fuck up or something. We don't have control over that. So I totally understand if people don't want to share it.
11:43, when Lazarus had been dead in the tomb for 4 days, Jesus stood at the entrance and commanded with a voice of absolute authority, "Lazarus, come forth." And a dead man walked out, still wrapped in grave clothes, still carrying the smell of the tomb.
Oh, so we're not only curing mental illness in this, we're also curing death, apparently.
But alive, out, free. That is the voice speaking over your loop right now. Not a gentle suggestion, not a hopeful wish, a command from the one who has authority over every grave, every tomb, every loop. Come forth.
Yeah, so challenging thoughts, there's definitely, especially in schema where you've got to challenge other aspects, other things that come up, sure, and you generally do it as an authoritative voice, because at the end of the day, it is the mode of the healthy adult that really is in charge, right? Like, the healthy adult is the one that is rational, thinks logically. So if you feel that, and schema sort of deals with these modes that you go into as a result of trauma or stress or, things that happen. And so there may be the petulant child, which is sort of, you want to stamp your foot and go, man, and there's that mode. Being the healthy adult and going, no, let's just get on with our work. There's no time for this, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a voice of authority, but it doesn't come from Jesus. It doesn't come from Jesus. Like, this is the weird thing. It's very, very strange.
The grade clothes, the shame, the record, the patterns, the history, those come off next. But first, you walk out. You make the decision to move toward the voice rather than back into the tomb. You take the first step out of the loop and toward the light, even if your legs are still wrapped in what held you, even if you smell like where you've been. 5 steps. Identification. Name the stronghold at its root. Renunciation. Verbally break the agreement by the blood of Christ. Renewal. Rewire your mind daily with the word. Prayer and fasting. Go to the deep warfare. Community. Do not escape alone. And above every step, the voice of Jesus. Come.
Yeah, there's bits and pieces of things that line up with some of the therapies if you sort of retroactively, but there's a lot in there that's just terrible. Just terrible. Right? Because a lot of the time we rationalize what we do. We will go, oh, well, just say it's addiction. Oh, well, it'll just be one more time. Right? And we'll rationalize it. And it'll sound like our healthy adult. That's what CBT is trying to do. It's trying to say, what is the thoughts that come up? What are their outcomes? Not just, this thought could come up and I better think this way, but what will that lead to? Right? What emotions will that bring up and what it will lead to? So, it's not enough just to go, oh, well, I'll just listen to the voice, because guess what? Our voices in our heads can be dead wrong. And we can rationalize stuff and a voice will come up and it's a terrible, terrible thought. Like, it's just a terrible thought. So it's just, it's really bad advice to just sort of go, well, just listen to the voice of Jesus. Which one is that? How do you tell?
Fourth, you are not your loop. You are not your addiction. You are not your generational pattern. You are not your criminal record. You are not your debt. You are not your anger. You are not your screen time.
You are not your religion. You are not your Messiah. You are not, an image made in God, and made in the image of God. No. I agree with this, but I also agree it applies to his religion as well.
You are not what has been done to you or what you have done in the dark.
I went through that earlier, Spillcap. That's cognitive behavioral therapy. It's basically, it's used as an interrupt for thoughts in between the feelings and the behaviors in order to stop the feelings from arising, and those don't influence the behaviors anymore. So it's basically training your brain to challenge distorted thoughts that may not be accurate. Like, for instance, oh, it'll just be one more time. Right? Like if you challenge that, you're like, well, no, if I keep doing this and using this substance, I will go back to it. And you know that, right? Your healthy adult is aware of that. So you challenge it, and it takes a lot of work to sort of, push against these ideas. It really is a lot of work. But you know what? I actually like that one more. Cosmic batting time. Yes. Play ball.
1 John 4:4 says, greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. The one inside you is stronger than the loop around you, every time, without exception.
Well, the loop isn't around you. It isn't external to you. It's in you. As I pointed out, the cognitive behavioral triangle, the sort of interconnectedness between them. None of that's external. The cognitive triangle. Hold it. Whoops. Sorry. That's my bad. I will share it again. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, none of that's external, right? The behaviors may influence external, but that's still internal to you. It's still what you do. Like, this whole idea that it's somehow external is terrible. It's not good.
If this video spoke directly to a loop you are living in right now, do not scroll past this moment. Drop a comment and tell me what you are coming out of. Your comment might be the thing that gives someone else permission to name their loop for the first time. Share this with the person who needs to hear "Come Forth" today. Subscribe, because this community is built for people who are done with the loop and ready for what God actually has. Your breakthrough starts the moment you decide the loop is not your final address. Come forth.
Oh, come, all right, buddy. Okay, my loop. Okay, I really hate not calling it a cycle, but never mind. My loop is watching terrible Christian videos and then talking about them on YouTube. Can you do anything for me for that one? No, I'm joking. I love it. But this one did make me frustrated and angry, because it is a religious believer taking principles learnt by modern psychology and retroactively fitting them in to the Bible and claiming them in the name of Christianity. And like, not everything he said was awful, but some of it was, like fasting and prayer kind of thing. Because no amount of praying is going to fix your problems. It's just not. Praying doesn't do anything. It's not saying, hey, I'm going to change what I am thinking so my behaviors will change. It's asking God to change it for you. And there's only one person that can get you out of a distorted thought or a harmful pattern of behavior. There's only one person. And that's you. But it can be done. And it's really hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, hey, you just change your thoughts and it's all fixed. No. I'm not saying also you just pray to God and fast and it's all fixed. No. It is a long journey that takes so much effort, and it is work. It is hard to do. And I would never take that away from people. Like, ever. It's hard to do. And I think that that's underrated. I think that people stigmatize it a lot. I think that people sort of go, oh, if you were stronger, It's not about strength. It's not about strength. Distorted thoughts can occur to us all. It's something that the brain is very easily able to do, but it's important to know that you have the power to challenge them. And not in the name of God, just in the name of reality around you. You can challenge those thoughts by, noticing the outcomes, bringing up a thought that you could think. Is that more accurate for the world around you? Yeah, probably. Sure. It's just critical thinking. That's all it is. And that's why, that's CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. It's why I liked it so much, because it was reality here, which really is critical thinking. Does it hold any weight? Does it actually do anything? But I think that sort of just people prey, and Christians prey, not just Christians, other religions as well. They really prey on people in a bad place and offer them a solution that will get them more followers, more adherents, more people into their religion. And I think it's horrible, because they're not. I think some people are interested primarily whether it will solve the problem, but I think a lot of them are just like, well, come to my God club. And you'll be as happy as I am. And some of them don't seem to be that happy. But the amount of times I've been told, mostly by Christians, that, hey, God only appears to you when you're at a crisis, when you're at your lowest point. And when people are at their lowest point, they say, well, believe in God and then he'll fix everything, kind of thing. And they will feel better for a while. They'll feel better going to church. But they'll still sin, right? Everyone's a sinner. Does it actually fix the problem? No, it just provides you with a way to feel better when you do something wrong. When it was you putting you on the hook the entire time. It's silly. It's horrible. Because their primary interest is not whether you have a fulfilled, happy life. Their primary interest is get you on the Lord's side. And I'm not saying all Christians are like this. I've just encountered an uncomfortable amount of them that prey on people when they are at their lowest point and desperate. Desperate for a fix. Desperate to, break out of these traps that their mind has made. They're desperate. And someone comes along and says, oh, I can fix everything. Freaking horrific. They minimize it. Oh, well, it's easy. You just believe in God and go to church and do all these things. It doesn't fix anything. And breaking out of that trap that your mind has made is really, really, really hard. Especially if it's a core belief, something that sort of defines you. And that's why deconstruction is always such a challenge. Because that's the same. It's basically challenging those thoughts that are coming up, telling you, oh, well, I won't succeed without God. Is that an accurate thought? Is it? There's tons of people that have succeeded without God. There's people that have succeeded even though Christians call them the Antichrist. Like, does it really require a God? Are you sure? Is that a valid way to think? So that's why I loved, I think deconstruction and cognitive behavioral therapy do have a few things in common, like some commonalities between them, and challenging your thoughts is definitely one of them. But yeah, that video made me angry. Again, for the last time, don't listen to me if you've got mental health issues. All I can tell you about is that for my issues and my mental health journey and the way that I've progressed through my life, what has helped me? I'm not saying it'll help you. I'm not saying it's good for you. Go see a mental health professional, preferably one that is specialized in what you are going through. However, I know it can be difficult. I know that sometimes you don't click with the person that is your therapist. You just, I once saw a therapist and they started talking about spirituality and, all of this. They weren't for me. They weren't for me. That's not, I don't, I don't think they were using it for a metaphor either. I think they were being serious, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't think you're for me. So I know it can be a challenge, and it's expensive, and I will talk about constantly the need for the government to provide mental health services for the people, and normal health services for the people. If you are one of the people that don't get that, it's absolute atrocity, and I will point out that some of these absolute horrible people are happy to spend millions on bombs and guns and military interventions and ballrooms and just crap, and ignore that people need to have health services, mental health services, health preventative services. It's really important, and it breaks my heart that people I know do not have an opportunity, and that pisses me off. And it pisses me off that some religious people come in and try to prey on people while they're not doing well. It pisses me off. So yeah, I will acknowledge my feelings. I'm certainly angry at this. The thought that comes up is this could possibly harm people. This could feasibly harm people. And is that a valid thought? I think so, yeah. I mean, going back to the story about the girl with anorexia being told she's hungry for God in a school, that harmed her. That is not good. Has it harmed other people? Yeah, I think that some people have become way too deep into religion and do harmful things to others. Yes, I think that is a thought. Now, look, a church can help with mental health issues. I'm not saying it can't, but what I'm saying is that it should be a treatment that has been proven with clinical trials, evidence, the best of our knowledge, the best that our medicine has to offer. And sometimes, yes, it does involve drugs. Okay, it does. And sometimes that is to get them to a place where they can actually work on their issues. Not many times do they go out with the onset to make it permanent or anything like that, but sometimes that's what it requires. And I remember one of the reasons why I got into doing this in the first place was that I think I saw an episode of, I think it was Truth Wanted. I think it was Truth Wanted. I think it was after the Atheist Experience. It used to run after the Atheist Experience. And there were the two guys were there, and they had met it was either a girl or a young woman, like either, just sort of coming into adulthood. I think she was a young woman. I think she was like 19 or 18 kind of thing. And she told this story about how she'd grown up in a very, very religious household. And eventually she had gone and gotten therapy, and they diagnosed her with schizophrenia, right? And she was given medication to help. She was working on it. She felt in a much better place. She was making progress along her journey. And apparently her family did like a reverse intervention. Like they basically got her in the house, sat her down, and told her that she was possessed by demons. She was possessed by demons, and tried to convince her to stop taking her medication and go to church because she needed God to get rid of her demons. Now, the thing that made me almost literally brought tears to my eyes, was that she had to sit there and go over and over in her head, there's no such thing as demons. I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia. There's no such thing as demons. I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia. And she left eventually. She just sort of said, no, I'm not doing this, and left, and essentially didn't talk to her family again. I'm not sure how it turned out, but she was one of the bravest people I've ever seen. I cannot tell you how dangerous it is to tell a schizophrenic person to stop taking medicine and that they are possessed by demons. It is so dangerous. And these people were like, you just need to turn to God. And I am so proud of that young lady for being strong enough to know what the science says, understand and use the tools that she learnt during that therapy, because she was talking about the tools that she had during that therapy to be able to challenge the idea that was essentially being forced on her. And she basically went, no, I'm not listening to this. I'm doing my therapy. I'm taking my medication. I am going to get better. And I'm getting better. I'm not going backwards to where I believe things that aren't true, believe in things that don't exist, because that's a problem with schizophrenia. Okay, a distorted view of reality. And it is, you know, that kind of behavior that makes me do what I do. That, you know, I would like everybody to challenge their beliefs and challenge this idea. It's not good. Anyway, yeah, and that basically started me going to Amy Newman's channel and engaging with atheism. And here I am. That was the initial event. That was the origin story of Mark Reed. Like watching that young lady be, you know, just relay her story. And what incredible strength. You know, like just to be able to maintain your belief through, you know, let's face it, some assholes trying to convince you that demons are real and that you're possessed. I mean, seriously. But yeah, that's the instigating event. Anyway, yeah, so not everything in that video was bad. A lot of it was. Let's push back. Let's shove back. But thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow, I'm posting it late. I've got to do some work on it. I've got all kinds of work to do, but I will be doing a Hoven stream. I don't even know what I'm playing at this point. Probably Cult of the Lamb, because that was funny last time. So probably that. But number one, be kind to yourself. Be kind. If you wouldn't hassle somebody else for having a mental health issue, don't hassle yourself. Why would you be comforting and empathic with your best friend having a mental health issue, but you wouldn't be for yourself? So be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.
To what new horizons can we look now? Where are tomorrow's opportunities? The frontiers of the future are not on any map. But now, what's ahead of us?